Great Britain side that I've had the displeasure of seeing.
Let me ask you this, Steve. Here's a question I don't know whether you've ever been asked before. Are you disappointed at not having captained an Australian team?
No.
Never entered your mind?
No, only this year, and there was a bit in the press about it, but I've never really given it any great thought.
Would it be an ambition that you want to achieve before you finish your time?
If I could, yes, I'd love to.
Not that we're talking about you finishing your time in the next, you know, we're talking in the future.
Had a good game too, Boyd, all away.
Yes, he needed to redeem himself from the second test. He had a quiet one, didn't he?
Certainly did. Had a good one yesterday.
He also got a very nice elbow on the jaw, which couldn't have done him any good.
He copped a bit early, Les.
Did he ever?
Probably getting his chop.
Yeah.
No, but as an ex-player and as a person who's played against some of the great English forwards, I've never seen a slower, less skillful ball handling pack than we have here. Their efforts to move the ball around in the second half, I thought at times bordered on pathetic.
Yeah, so there's very little good you can say about them, actually, as a football team. And that's the pity, in my view, because this is a very, very good Australian team that for a while, until memory fades, is going to be, people will say, well, how can you say that they were a great side because of the shocking opposition?
Yeah.
Well, don't you think that must be a worry in the rugby league world, though, Rex? Like we're seeing Great Britain, we've always looked for Great Britain Australian test matches, something that we really look forward to coming in Australia. Now, we've got the Great Britain out of the game of rugby league at this stage of the game. We look across to New Zealand, we see Auckland beaten by a reserve grade side. They come across the other night and easily beaten. And really, it's not an Australian side. Let's face up the facts. It's a Sydney side that's playing. It's a Sydney side that's playing. So we've got troubles in Queensland, we've got troubles in the country, we've got troubles in Great Britain, there's troubles in New Zealand.
Yeah, but we don't...
Well, that's what we've got, Alan.
Yeah,
that's exactly what we've got.
We don't know what players are left back there in Great Britain. I mean, this selection panel that they've picked the team to come out here can't do their job, obviously. Of course, they left Fairburn back there and they left Topless back there. They've arrived out here and they've gone straight into a test team, so obviously they haven't done their job. Now, I'll bet there are a lot better players back there than the elderly gentlemen we saw wandering around out there in these
first
three
couple
tests.
of tests.
The first couple of tests.
Let's hope there are, but I say that's what's happened, though. These fellas are not getting the full credit. What you said a while ago, Steve said he doesn't
What
pick the
you're saying,
opposition.
Col, is the best players from each of these various countries, except France, have been siphoned off here over the years into Sydney football.
Yeah, but they're not.
Right.
Yeah, well, there are only
That's
a
right.
couple here now, though, aren't there?
Well, they let the Great Britain side 2 years have had stopping players come to Australia.
Yeah.
It hasn't lifted them at all at this stage. You say it's selections. May not be selections.
Well, it's nearly got to be selection, Cole, when you consider that the best they had couldn't beat ours over there under their conditions, and they'd send the same group out here to do our conditions.
well,
They had Tony Fisher in over there. You know, he's older than I am. No, he's not. No, not quite. Not quite.
Well, as I'm saying, it must be a worry, and I think it's got to become something looked at it, because I said what we see in the 3 international matches at the Sydney Cricket Ground, 50,000 people watched it.
That's
Listen,
right.
there is
Yeah,
one
but things
question.
do tend to go in cycles, Col. I mean,
Well,
you can't just say because this is a low English side that they're not going to come good.
Oh,
They're going to have to
I
reappraise.
sincerely hope they do.
Yeah, but I mean,
For the good of the game of
I
rugby league.
played in a test match where we were beaten by 44 points to 17 or something, 41 points to
All
17.
your fault, too.
It was all my fault, yeah. I only did 48 tackles in that
Think of
game.
the poor fellas that were
The
running
point
off
is,
you.
we had a bad match in that one. But then the next year, we took a young kangaroo side away that started to rebuild. So, you know, things go in
Yeah,
cycles.
come in
But
cycles.
Rex, they haven't. They've still got the old players in this side. They're going to have to sack the old players and start off from scratch with the younger types. And the younger ones there, well, who are the young ones in what we saw yesterday?
You know, and a more dedicated approach. I mean, some of those fellows they brought out, they couldn't even play the piano.
Oh, that's a rude thing to say.
No, they
That's a
couldn't.
terrible thing
They
to
couldn't.
say.
Honestly, they couldn't play the piano.
I
some of
thought
those
Casey would have made a good dancer. He gave Tom a nice little rat-tat-tat on the head
fellows.
on one occasion.
Now, listen, you've played against a lot of the teams of the past. And let's bring it into the modern day football now. There's been a lot of talk about violence in football. There was spite yesterday, no violence. Do you think that the game now is more spiteful or more vicious than it was, say, when you fellas were playing?
Well, let's answer in sequence. Who do you want to answer first?
Well, you're the head of the table. You,
All right,
you
well,
can go
I'll
first.
say categorically, and I'll get Steve Rogers' opinion on this at this point. When I've made my statement, he can agree or disagree. I don't believe the game is any tougher at all than it used to be. Now, maybe I'm living in the past. Maybe you get better as you get older. That may be. So I'm allowing for the fact of a certain amount of brain damage, and I'm going soft. The game is no tougher in any aspect than it ever was. It's certainly more violent and snide than it used to be. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I must say I agree. I don't think the game possibly is quite as tough as it used to be. that we haven't got the physical encounters like you used to have in your day, where it was unlimited tackle football and used to have the head-on clashes with the forward. Whereas today, it's limited tackle. It's a much faster, more open game, but you get that bit of spite coming in.
Well, a player, now here, you're a young fella, I would say we wouldn't have a better man to ask these questions to. You're young, you're with it, you're one of the big-time players. Are you blokes, now forget Probyn as your coach at the moment, you've been under other coaches, and you know about other coaches. Are players coached to do these stupid, violent things? Is it suggested to them that you go out and stand on a bloke's hand, or you gouge at his eye, or you pull his hair, or you do... Is it just come out in people?
No, I can only speak for our side, and none of our players have ever been told to do anything like that at all. We've always been told to play the game hard, tackle hard, not do anything silly, but, hurt players with a tackle, which is, it's the game.
You come up against it week after week, though, with other teams. If you say you don't do it, well, I'll accept that, because you are basically a very clean player. I'm saying that with the knowledge of having watched you for a number of years. But you come up against it with other teams. Now, does it worry you? Do you ever in fear of your well-being out there, with what you might get when you're on the ground waiting for the knees to come in?
Oh, yeah, I think, sometimes it does stay in the back of your mind, and you can't let it worry you to the extent where it's going to affect your game, but, in some games, when I go down, the first thing I do is cover up.
Well, Steve, what's the answer? Why is the game more violent now? Not tougher, but more violent. Why is it more violent?
Possibly, the fact that it's so much money involved in the game today, and it's a win-at-all-cost attitude, I think, with a lot of players.
Just on that point there, with that, just a little thing, Steve, like you go down and you roll over trying to get up to play the ball, and that nice hand comes and pushes your head in there. Now that was, honestly, I don't think I've ever done that once, and probably neither of you felt. Yeah. It doesn't hurt. But God, it's a niggling thing, and you'll take the bloke's number, and as sure as eggs you get near him, you'll try and unload something on him later on. You get plenty of attention, don't you? Like you're a marked man, and that push in the face. It's
well, answer the question that Alan asked.
That's not violent, but it looks violent.
Answer the question that Alan asked.
Well, do you think there's more spite and violence in the game now?
Well, I think this. I think that in different ways. I've always advocated a punch in the nose never hurt anyone, but I'll tell you what.
Didn't do any good.
This elbow. What about yourself? Ugly. Anyway, with this elbow bit, I know what I'd sooner have, a punch in the nose or an elbow on the jaw, with a wire and all that sort of stuff later on. But now it's got to the stage where you see the ball carrier is doing as much damage with his elbow to the tackler. Like the ball he'll come in and crash, he'll get the elbow right across the mouth. Well, I mean, that's got to go, and who's responsible for that? And I think the elbow is probably the most violent part of the game.
Well, unfortunately, we've got to say that an Englishman brought that to Australia, Malcolm Reilly. Yeah. The Manly club brought a very fine footballer, but they also brought they opened the Pandora's box, didn't they?
Yeah. And it's not only the man that's making the tackle, but it's the ball carrier now that's using the elbow as a protection.
Yeah, well, I think the administration's got to take a lot of blame for this through the refereeing as well, because I don't think it's any more tougher than it was years ago, but I agree that there's practice has been allowed to creep into the game. When we played, you kept your hands off the other bloke when he was playing the ball or when you were marking him, because if he objected to it, and it was a rule of the game.
You're supposed to now, aren't you?
That's the rule. The rules are still haven't changed.
But they allow them to do it. So a bloke, if he starts while you're playing the ball, interfering with you or putting his hands out, trying to stop you getting past, you react violently to it, and this is what it is.
Cole Pearce, what's the answer? Are the referees given a free go? Can they do exactly as they want to out on the field?
Well, they have to play the laws of the game, to put the rules in.
Well, they don't play the laws of the game, because every time a tackle is made, the law says a player must be immediately released. Now, tell me today, in the game you're going to watch, well, I'll give you a pound.
A pound?
I'll give you $2 every time a player in your match this afternoon is released immediately.
Yeah, that's quite true. Well, that's the rules. Now, I think we've got to the stage, and I think media and some other people have criticised referees who send players off the field. And the first moment that comes up in this game when a player's sent off the field is from the media. They'll say, you spoilt the game. The referee he hasn't spoilt the game at all. I would like to see, and all what we're talking about today wouldn't arise, because if a player was sent off a couple of times, his club and also the player concerned should do something about the player. I believe referees should get tougher and do something about it. But let me say this. They have sent players off this year too, and I said around this table before, there's exonerations gone on this year, a lot of exonerations, the greatest in the history of rugby.
Discuss the aspect of the three You said 2, I think 3 lost opportunities by Parramatta in the early stages of the game, all in that scoreboard corner. Now, one of them broke down from a pass from Levy going to Atkins being knocked down, and Canterbury came up with possession. How did the breakdown on the other 2 occur? Sterling was involved in one.
Yeah, Sterling was in one. The other one I remember was Graham Atkins rang down the wing and he tried to pass overhead to me and it just went sailing out of my head straight to Gary Hughes.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're better off keeping the ball in that situation and applying the pressure. But every time we got down there, we just gave them the ball back. And if you don't keep pressure on them in this type of game, you don't win them.
There was one funny little flurry yesterday, Noel. Do you remember it where the ball changed hands about 4 times?
Yeah.
And in the end, I called out Jim McCovery, I'll get it. There, that might have been part of it, was it?
Yeah. Well, the tackling was very hard, Rex. Though I think it was more jolting the ball out of everybody's
Here it
hands.
is. This is the one, see?
When this play starts again, you'll see they use the old ball.
Yeah, that looked like a brand new football they
Yeah,
had
it
on.
did, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff, in play there where you're talking about tries being missed, I thought Glover could have gone on with it once, right over the far side, in the second half, yeah. I thought if he'd have gone on with it, there was a try on
His
there.
foot in the touch, wasn't it? Was that
Yeah,
the
that's
one?
one.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Looked to
Neville
me as if he'd
skirted
slowed up.
pretty close to the touchline, you know. If you've only got a limited amount of space, you can only work in it. And his style is to go around the fella rather than, you know, step or go inside him.
It just looked like to me as if his handbrake jammed yesterday.
Steve Mortimer, the question I was going to ask you has just gone out of my head there for a second. I must be going a bit pulpy or something I drank. I can't remember. What was it?
Too many scrums.
Been in too many scrums, yes. No, it was while Jeff was talking, a point came up that I just wanted to amplify, and I can't for the life of me think what it was, so we'll press on. What sort of game did Mr. Hartley have yesterday?
I have no complaints about the referee. Any referee that refs our games, I've got no complaints, Rex.
That's very tactful of you, Stephen. Very tactful indeed. Jeff, have you any like remarks to make?
He was okay.
Is okay, the referee?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it was that I was going to ask you, Steve, was about Gary Hughes. He must have absolutely relished making that initial break that led to the first try by brother Chris, and also scoring his own try, because he was written off a bit through the week, wasn't he?
Well, I think Gary Hughes yesterday proved to a lot of people, all these knockers and that, even within our supporters, some of our supporters, Gary Hughes showed yesterday that what a good 5'8" he is. We do need him as our link man to settle the play down. I'll stick with Gary any day.
It was obvious there when he scored the try, he rode him round the back of the thing like a jockey.
Well, actually, he was involved
here it
in
is.
2 of the tries, wasn't he?
He made the first and scored. He made the first one and scored the fourth.
Good football.
Well, he
Third or
gave a
fourth,
beautiful
third.
pass to Cutler, put Cutler through for the second one too, I think, didn't he?
Yeah.
Jeff, on the other side of things, I suppose it's all right to say now once the horse is out, but I thought Lou Platts should have been in the side right from the start.
Oh, well, that's a decision to be made by the coach. He was faced with that decision and he thought Peter played well enough the week before to go in.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a decision to make, because Platts has been a man in great form the last 3 weeks, hasn't
Well,
he?
I think Lou's probably, you know, been our best forward over the last 6 weeks.
So I find it a little bit hard to justify him not being in the side personally.
Oh, well, I can't comment.
You can't comment on that.
That's a coach's
Were you happy or unhappy to see Platts? What was your reaction when he wasn't in the side on? That's what I'm getting at.
Well, he was in fine form the last few games and it suited us fine that he didn't take the field with the first 13 and when he did come on, he played very well, actually.
He did indeed. Well, now, Ted Glossop, a highly emotional Ted Glossop, I spoke to him after the game, and we'll hark back to some of the little incidents that took place immediately the game finished, because you'll know that he was out on the field to greet his players, and he always keeps a very much of a stiff upper lip image. It slipped a little bit yesterday. Ted, congratulations, that goes without saying. You were highly emotional immediately after the game. Could you just tell me what was going through your mind as you were greeting your players coming off the field?
Yes, I probably dropped my disguise at that particular moment. You're right, Rex. I just felt so contented for those young men that had been out there for the last 3 weeks, giving everything that they had, plus that little bit extra that I suppose I limelighted. I just wanted to be with them when they walked off that Sydney cricket
I don't
ground.
think anyone would argue the toss. 14 tries in 3 matches of final football, that's unheard of.
Yes, that's one of the pleasing things about it too. And when you consider that we've played, and I've got no doubt about it, the 3 best sides with St George to come, it just shows you that if you don't let these semi-finals, finals and grand finals become anything other than another game of football and send your players out there to play the football and show the ability they have, it doesn't become a great big pressing thing for them. And so my boys have gone out each week in the last 3 to play a game of football. We knew it was very important. If we were beaten, we were finished. But I sent them out there to play a game of football with the skills and the ability and the great big hearts that they've got pumping inside them, and they've done just that. They've held good sides, they've tackled good sides out of it, and as you said, we've scored 14 tries in these 3 games, so that's why I walked out. I wanted to be with them.
Well, nobody's going to argue with that. Now, last week he had you playing VFL at training, and I think there's been soccer somewhere in the past. What's it going to be this week? Jeff Gerard says cricket.
It won't change. I don't know. It's up to Ted. We're pretty lousy with the VFL. I think we might give soccer a go.
What about hockey? You can take a bat out with, what do you call it, a hockey stick out with it. You can do a bit of damage with that.
I think the players will be giving it to each other, though, the stick in their hands.
All right, now Terry Fernley, I thought, was the model of decorum in the interview at the end of the game, because I realised just how disappointed Terry Fernley must be, because he's been with the Parramatta side that's been a great side for 4 years, and he still can't crack that premiership. But very tactful and said, in my view, all the right things.
Well, I thought our guys tried hard, but we're beaten by a better side. They come up trumps today, didn't they, Canterbury?
They did. Playing with an enormous amount of enthusiasm.
Yeah, very hard to beat, enthusiasm.
And all the possession they've been
getting. That withstood our challenge. I thought in the first 20 minutes we put plenty on them. We really, ripped in with our defence, and we had a few chances to score, but we come up with a lot of lost ball, and but they withstood that and came back strong, and I think they'll go right next week.
Well, now, that's an interesting thing. Now, you've played both these sides. Your side has played both these sides, St George and Canterbury. How do you feel? Is it a St George certainty, or are they Canterbury in with some sort of a chance or a big chance? Or what?
I think really Canterbury are a fairly good chance. Yeah, I think... they're young and enthusiastic, and they want to win, and they've got a few good performances under their belt. And St George, their week off is not a help. I don't care what anyone says. There's no one in the world. They had a week's break, being minor premiers, played against us. Another week's break, and I think that is a disadvantage. So I'd say Canterbury in with a real strong chance.
I've always subscribed to that view myself, but I can't get a lot of people to agree with me.
Oh, that's right. No, I think you need the football. You've got to keep going. It's
providing you don't get injury problems during the continuous...
Yeah, but even that, Canterbury in both the first and reserve grade, so they've got some good players. So
he seems to be able to send his team out in a very relaxed fashion, Glossop. They go out there and 14 tries in 3 matches of final football. They're playing it just like a normal premiership game, aren't they?
Yeah, they're going well. They're going well, and they've got caught up in it too. Doing the thing that was impossible, and they're the dangerous sides, aren't they?
Dangerous sides, aren't they? Do you subscribe to that? I liked his blue and white jumper too. Maybe that was security. That was a Freudian slip, was it, Jeff?
Yeah.
There you are. All right, a couple of highlights of the game yesterday. I just want to be able to show you, because you've already seen them, but these are things that to me were salient points. Our award winner yesterday was this young fella Smith, who took this enormous knock and still came up playing a game, that I thought was quite outstanding. He's only a kid, 20 years of age. You've seen him on the show earlier. Look at this contact with Jay. They both rebound, and that was the scene setter in the 30th second of the game. I thought too that the young Sterling, while he had a fair game, I thought he must have been in the side to do some tactical kicking. Would that have been right or wrong?
Oh, well, I think Terry told him if the opportunity came to kick.
Well, it didn't always work the way you wanted it to. This one, for instance, early on, the ricochet and the ball straight back on the first tackle to, second tackle to Canterbury was not what he had in mind. There were 2 other occasions when he kicked and the ball just didn't go anywhere near where he expected it to go.
Well, I think Peter's a type of kicker who keeps the ball low. He does a torpedo low, and that's always a chance to rebound off somebody.
That's right. And Steve, we've already discussed with you the business of kicking. You were under instructions, or your team were under instructions, that they could kick at any time after the first 20 minutes or so, regardless of what sort of tackle it was on.
Yes, Rex, just settle into the play and see how the game's going. Let all the boys get settled down and make any opportunity.
Well, here was won by Cutler on the blind side on the first tackle. You'd just won the ball from the scrum. Nearly resulted in a try. Only a great bit of sprinting by young Sterling. Oh, yeah. Well, that could have been anything, couldn't it?
Yeah, it was good tactics by Stanley, because Gary Dowling was standing up flat and there was no one home.
Quite.
Very noticeable too.
Of course, we've come to expect this scene to be, to be seen, of play on words. As we watch this, watch Greg Hartley. And over again he goes. He gets a bit close to the action. That'll be about the 44th time he's been over this year. But let me congratulate him. I thought he had a splendid game insofar as the actual refereeing was concerned. From the sideline, that is. I couldn't... the players obviously get different impressions on the field. This is one of the bombed tries by Parramatta, or bombed opportunities early on. There was plenty of room in the three-quarter line. Everyone standing nice and deep. Levy made the initial break, and the play broke down with this pass coming from Levy, I believe, getting maybe just touched by somebody, or was it a little bit too hard? But anyway, Atkins couldn't handle it, and up came Canterbury with the ball.
Well, they got, on 2 occasions, they got the ball, and the other time went into touch, so how do you do it, you know?
Yeah, you can't do it on that basis, can you? There was the Steve Mortimer try that Alan Clarkson didn't like at all. From head on, have a look at it. What do you do? What's in your head when you see a thing like that? I mean, I could never run, so what do you do? Do you set yourself to run at a certain time, or do you create the opportunity, or do you look for an opportunity to run?
I was just waiting my turn and decided when I think it was Lou Platts, he was coming up to the player I was going to pass it to, so there was a bit of a gap there. I thought I'd have a go at it.
Oh, well, it's in your mind. I mean, I'm just trying to get which priority you've got. Is it you're going to run this time regardless of what's happened, or you see an opening and you go for the opening?
Play by ear.
Play by ear. I'm still none the wiser. It doesn't help. It doesn't help, Noel, does it? It doesn't help.
It doesn't give much away.
No, it doesn't give much away.
Why should he? He's got another
And this incredible sprint. Now, Jeff Gerard was telling us about Ray Price's ability to run. Now, what about it, Jeff?
Well, you know, he's very quick. Always at training, I think it's out of him and Lou to see who's the fastest forward. I was just saying then, if you could re-cue that, Peter Wynn was saying that he was held back and he could have got Chris Anderson at that stage.
Yeah.
And
well, can we re-cue that? Just go back to the point where the ball's kicked from?
Yeah, well, you know, Peter was held by George Paponis and he was a big chance of getting...
I think Peter just had a bit of dirt in the back of his goon and George just rushing
Yeah, well, you know,
that's
put them right back onto the advantage after, you know, we got them down their half.
Okay, let's have a look.
There he is, look.
Yeah, you just held him then.
Yeah, you know, it's a little thing like that, but he got away with it. Good luck to him.
That's what comes in the category of gamesmanship, though, isn't it?
Yes, experience.
But I'm still amazed at the pace Price showed to be able to stay with an Australian three-quarter and do as well as he did. A couple of things I'd like to mention is the fact that we've got the big show on tonight, the greatest game of all, between 6:30 and 7:30. It's a look round the whole rugby league season. We've got a host of interviews with famous names of the past, the Gasniers, the Churchills, the Kellys, very much the past, the Bishops, the Stantons. And you'll see all sorts of videotape action of things that you may have forgotten about that occurred in different parts of the season. So there it is. I wanted to comment, Noel, and I wanted your attitude, and maybe you too, Alan and Ferris, this business of players. Now, the Manly Club have bought 2, certainly maybe 3 players from Western Suburbs. Don't you think that all could have been done after the season was over?
I do. I think I deplore it. I think that when a player is actively playing with a club in a season like 79, there should be no dickering with another club before the end of the season.
This happens every year.
Yeah, but well, I know it happens every year, but it doesn't make it right that it happens every year, does it?
How are you going to defeat it? Like, I mean, you can all sit down and say, no, we won't do this and we won't do that, and the first bloke that goes out rings up someone on the telephone. Like, it's as close as that, isn't it?
I just don't see the need for this sort of publicity. It shows up rugby league as an avaricious, dog-eat-dog business.
Well, it is. That's exactly what it is.
Well, maybe it is, but can't they make it appear that justice is done? Can't they wait another week till the grand final's over?
They're not ostriches, and I presume that Kenny Arthurson wants to rebuild his team. He doesn't like being...
no doubt about that.
He doesn't like being out of the semi-finals, and he's not going to be out of them next year. It's as simple as that.
Well, I mean, one swallow doesn't make a summer. The fact that he's bought 3 top players doesn't necessarily guarantee a premiership spot or a semi-final spot.
What sort of a loyalty can you expect from a player who's playing with a club? He's got big matches to come, and yet he's talking to another club about something that's going to happen next year.
Well, it's going
Isn't
to
there
happen.
loyalty or anything in the club?
Well, with the players, probably not.
Well, there should be.
I can't blame the players these days. I mean, this is the way the game is. It's an unfortunate...
Well, it shouldn't be this way.
I know it. Yeah. I know it shouldn't be, but it is.
All right. Anyway, now, tonight on the greatest game of all, there is a mini controversy corner lasting, 8 or 9 minutes, and you'll see the gentlemen of the panel here offering their opinions on the results and outcome of next week's grand final. So we won't be discussing that at this point in time. Grand final tickets, some are still available. A lot of people have thought that they're all sold out. These are the reserve tickets. Don't give you access to seats, of course, because all the reserve seats have gone. But there are some tickets still for sale, and they're available at the headquarters, New South Wales Rugby League in Phillip Street, or at your local leagues club. Is it right, Johnny Peart is coaching the Parramatta club next year? That's quite definite.
That's definite.
Okay, well, that is, are you with the Parramatta club next year?
Yeah, I've still got a year to go. I'll be there.
Yeah, how old are you now? 30?
Yeah, no. 24, mate.
I just wanted to see the look on your face. What did you laugh for? Then? You know something, don't you? No, he was only commenting on how old you look, not how old you are.
He was bagging me before. He reckons I'm 31.
No, I never. He said 21.
I think that's a waist measurement. All right, Ferris, have you...
Yeah, I tell you what, I had Noel Kelly in the Viking sauna bath this morning, and he can't handle the heat.
Can he not? Well, we're going to handle the heat at Bonnie Doon Golf Course this afternoon. I'll give you till heaps. Viking Sauna Company, 352 Pittwater Road, Manly. That's the big KB golf day I'm out there. We're all going out to get into, and should be good fun. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the show. I'd like to give you some goodies to take away with you, if I can find my list of goodies, that is. And here's the goodies. Claude Fay vouchers to the value of $20, a delicious ham from Mepro, the small goods specialist, a dinner for two at the Cooperage Restaurant, 362 New Canterbury Road, Dulwich Hill. You can take each other. See Jimmy Colo, who'll arrange a great night out. A 2-litre container of Mr. Juicy orange juice.
He's not my style. He's too butch.
He's too butch. This is a family show, lads. This is a family show. A Whale 3-minute car wash and hot wax. Checkers, a full range of mixes to keep your drink alive and sparkling. Skipper pain relief spray. Good stuff. There might be a bit of that needed next week. Will's Denver small cigars. Brute toiletries by Fabergé. Some Australian Ben Hogan leader golf.
But again, see them waiting, Case. Instead of moving it. That was their undoing, Parramatta, in this second.
Well, when they scored this try, it was only 15-9. Now, it was not impossible to come back into the game. But the way they held off there, Frank, it was...
Yes, that was really rubbing it in.
They read about him being too slow. I think
What's that?
They believed what they'd read about Gary Hughes being too slow and just stood back and watched.
In the 32nd minute, Parramatta came back, and instead of the score being 20 points to 9, it finished up 20-14 with this converted try. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Parramatta, but in my book, Parramatta was beaten by a side that was a 20-point better side than them. Now, Platts gets the ball back to Gerard. Gerard does something in the game at last, goes in for this try.
I think it did show something, though. I think it showed that perhaps Lou Platts should have been in that game from the start of it. I can't fathom Terry Fernley's decision to drop him. I know he's not a top defensive player, but he's a fine attacking forward, and he scored more tries in the last month than any of the other forwards have, and he showed determination in that try. He scored a vital try the week before, and I think that perhaps he should have been in the side
from the beginning.
From the beginning.
Yes, but it was expense, though, Pete.
Oh, Bob Jays, I think he went around yesterday like a man that was suffering from concussion.
Yes, but before the game commenced, it was possession which was going to determine which side was going to win, and that was the reason he went in there, because he was a front row forward and would give assistance to Webb, but it didn't happen that way.
Well, it was a fine point, because when he came on the front row, they won the ball.
Well, Bob... No, when Hilditch went to prop.
Yeah.
Lou Platts, yeah.
Yeah, and Platts came in, yeah. So I think he should have been there in front of Jay from the start.
But you've already got a situation where their front rowers are all out of business. Why wouldn't you put Bob Jay in the team? I know he had concussion, there's no argument about that, and he did drop the ball a couple of times, but he's a big, hard, tough front row forward. He did a lot of damage early in that game. Ask the Canterbury players, I'll tell you how heavy he was tackling.
Yeah, and he dropped the ball about 4 or 5 times every time
Canterbury players dropped the ball too. Jay set up the try that they scored. You know, I think Jay went all right. He was one of the few Parramatta forwards that was going ahead with the ball and crash tackling.
Okay, for reports for the world of sport, and he wanted to know, as a lot of people would, how the Wynn brothers feel when they play against each other and what it's like to be in two teams.
Peter, tremendous effort over the last few weeks. You're a trainee school teacher, is that right?
That's right.
How long have you been playing football with Canterbury now?
That's my 3rd year in grade.
And obviously your best year yet?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's good.
You mainly played 5'8" earlier on in your career, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't start to play lock till I came into grade. I spent most of my juniors at 5'8", but I'm enjoying it now. We're going all right, so.
Did you find it a tremendous transition, particularly when you're... what's your weight?
I'm about 12.5.
So that didn't worry you at all, and as far as tackling those big forwards out wide and so on?
No, not really. I don't think the weight is the big thing, maybe in scrums, but, you know.
Yeah. You were obviously happy with your form yesterday. You had another top game.
Very happy, yeah. It's good to win.
Were you surprised at how well you won yesterday, Canterbury?
Oh, no. You know, there's just a good feeling in the club. Everyone's really keen. and it's paying dividends at the moment.
Did you notice Ted Glossop when you came off the field yesterday?
Yeah, he was
A few
ecstatic,
tears
wasn't
trickling down the cheek?
he? Could have been, I don't know.
You're too
He
ecstatic yourself.
Just stood at the gate and clapped.
The other big gentleman here, Peter Smith, you've set the world alight in the last couple of weeks, so I think we've got another Robinson in you. Yesterday when you were lifted 2 feet off the ground, I thought that was the last we were going to see of you for 1979, but you bounced back again and had a great game. You must be very happy with your form.
Oh, yeah, I'm going all right, you know. All the fellas on the side are giving you a lot of encouragement. They're like, we've got a fairly young side, but we've got some terrific senior players there, and they're behind us 100%, you know. They always giving you encouragement and giving you a little bit of advice, and it's terrific.
I suppose you're anxious now to retain your first grade position?
Oh, yeah, that's the go, first grade,
Yeah.
sure.
You've both signed 1-year contracts, haven't you, again?
Yeah, well, I'm tied up next year.
You are too, Peter?
Yeah.
You signed those a few weeks ago, I believe.
Oh, about halfway through the year. Yeah.
Just imagine if you win the grand final, that figure could have been far greater.
Oh, wouldn't have thought we got there at that stage, so.
You really didn't give yourselves much chance then?
Oh, I always thought we'd make the 5, but
yeah.
You can only hope from then.
How about you, Peter? Next week you're up against those two pretty formidable opponents in Craig Young and the other big front rower, Starkey.
Yeah, well, they're 2 top players, and like me and Greg Cook, we'll just go out we've got the same attitude every week. We'll be doing our best. It's been good enough the last couple of weeks, and I know everyone in the team feels that way too, you know. We'll just go out there, do our best. If we're good enough, we'll win.
Well, congratulations, Steve. Congratulations, Peter. There's no doubt about it. Canterbury's been good for rugby league this year, and in a year when there's been a lot of controversy floating around, so all the best for the grand final.
Right, thanks very much.
Well, thanks very much, Ken. And the awards that we are going to give the players, of course, I've told you about from Park Lane Journalist, the beautiful gold pendant for the Rookie of the Year. And for the 2 boys coming on the show today, as a sort of a, what can I say, not a consolation prize, but as an award for coming all the way from Canterbury the day after a big match, Larko training bag and tracksuit, and of course the Fabiani shirt from Grace Brothers. Now, let's have a look at Frank Hyde. Frank Hyde is talking today to one of the best 5/8s that football's had. And without taking too much more away from his introduction, it's also from a club that doesn't get too many raps. For his introduction of his great 5/8 of the past, here is Frank Hyde.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, North Sydney won the competition last in 1922. And in that year, they had an international 5/8 in a man called Dallas Hodgins. They've produced a lot of good footballers since then, and although they haven't won a competition, the man who's considered to be the best 5/8 produced by North Sydney in the following 57 years is a man that I played with in the stateside, and one that I agree with as one of the great 5/8s of rugby league, and he's my subject today, Rex Harrison. Congratulations, Rex, and thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you, Frank.
Well, Rex, you had a long, hard road to hoe with North Sydney over the years that you were playing with them, and you and Roy Thompson were 2 pair of halves that in the late 30s created a lot of havoc among other sides, and I can vouch for that personally. And
Steve Mortimer in action. What did you think of his game?
Watching Steve very closely yesterday, he's a brilliant player, and you can't give him any room to move. And I really respect him as a player.
Where do you think he's most dangerous? Round the scrum base, round the rucks from broken play.
Well, as I said, you can't give him a break at all. If there's a chance there, Steve will probably take it. He's a brilliant player.
Well, I know Steve Mortimer holds an equal respect for your ability. Yesterday, Steve, or today, should I say, did you really expect to be playing Canterbury in a grand final?
Well, on the form Canterbury shown in the semi-finals, I thought they had a big chance yesterday. They've been playing very good football, and we won't be underestimating them next week at all. They're a very good side.
You probably then more pleased Parramatta out of the way.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Personally speaking.
Well, probably more so the boys that have played Parramatta before in the 77 grand final, and actually a lot of the boys were barracking for Canterbury yesterday. I hope they get that out of their systems this week.
And were they still barracking round about 5 o'clock last night?
No, not really. Just I think they're starting to think about the game now. Yeah.
Do you agree it was a very impressive performance by Canterbury?
It was a very impressive performance. I was a bit disappointed in Parramatta. They looked a bit jaded, I think. They looked very stale.
There's been a comment, Steve, that the break that St George's had, 1 match in 3 weeks, 2 and 4, could go against you. What's your reaction to that criticism?
Well, that's right. We've only played 1 game in the last month, but we had a very hard run yesterday morning, and I think Harry will have us queued up physically and mentally for the game.
Would you rather have been playing continually or have had the breaks?
Well, probably it's to your advantage if you've got some injuries, and we had a few there, but I think everyone's fit, and we'll have our strongest side on the paddock, so it's good for us.
St George, would you agree, have to lift their form substantially in order to win the grand final after seeing Canterbury's form yesterday?
No, I wouldn't say that. That Parramatta game, I think we lifted ourselves there, and I think we can do a lot better than that game. I think we can go a lot better than that. I think it'll all come out on grand final day.
Well, Steve, I can only wish you on behalf of all St George supporters the very best of luck, and indeed in the KB Player of the Year contest, where again you're directly opposed to Steve Mortimer. You've played in 1 grand final prior to next Saturday, I believe, down at Adapter.
Yeah, 1977.
So you've got something up your sleeve over Steve Mortimer.
Oh, I hope so.
All the best.
Thanks very much.
What a great finish to our Player of the Year competition, and one that was quite obvious that it was going to come to this sort of a climax. Now, the most insecure job in Sydney today is not mine. No, it is the job of any tipster. I don't think that anyone has had much of a record from the day the preliminary semi-finals started, right through the semis, and now the final, and surely the grand final. The number of tips that have gone astray is monumental. I know tipsters, if they get a 50% record, have done a great job, but believe me, this year, well, it's been a shocker. Let me introduce the panel of game men who are now going to predict the outcome of this 1979 grand final. Fellas, well, we've got a tough job.
Not if you follow form.
If you follow form, you tip St George because of their 2 convincing wins over Canterbury.
I'll go the other way. What sort of form? Current form or early season form?
Current form. The form that we saw yesterday.
Isn't it more important, Jeff, to talk about teams against each other's form, not current form? Because when you start... Now, this is the Chesterton theory of relativity, is that when you talk about teams in the Sydney competition, you've got to measure them how they go against each other, not how they went last week.
That's right. The only thing is, Ron, in fairness to that theory, Canterbury haven't played that well. Not only yesterday, the previous week, all season.
That's right. But they are playing that well now, Jeff, and I think that's the significant feature of tipping who's going to win next week. My record this year has been abysmal as far as tips is concerned, because I have picked them on last week's form each week, and as a result I'm down the drain. Now, Canterbury have put together 3 terrific games in a row, and it's on that score. And because of the fact that the form that I've seen from Canterbury in the last 3 weeks is the best form I've seen since the semi-final started, I'm tipping Canterbury to beat St George.
I'm tipping St George, Frank, for the other way. I think we've lost track of St George a little bit. We haven't seen much of them. They played 1 game and they beat Parramatta, which took them into the grand final. And we've been captivated by Canterbury, as we're entitled to be, because they're a great side and they're playing extremely well. But had we seen a little bit more of St George, I'm sure they'd be more prominent in our thoughts.
What about the 1 game in 4 weeks, though? What effect is that going to have? Is it going to be an adverse effect or a good effect on their performance?
They won it in 77 in similar circumstances, Frank. Admitted that they only had the 2 weeks off. They were first into the grand final, and then they waited for Parramatta to come in. I think 2 weeks is a big break, but I think Harry Bath is crafty enough to get around that. He got around it in 77. He'll do it again this year.
Well, I disagree, Ray. I'm going for Canterbury. I think there's no substitute for the exuberance of youth. They're a team of young boys. The spirit is great. They've got a coach who, as far as I'm concerned, has come up with the right tactics week after week. And I do think that the St George players haven't had enough football. And mainly on that, I'd certainly go for Canterbury.
The only thing is that there are no real veterans in the St George team either, are there? There's plenty of youth sprinkled throughout that team.
Yeah, and the players that are there.
They've got a mature look about them. They've been to a grand final before recently, Jeff. Don't you think they've got a mature look about them?
Yes, well, that's another thing in their favour. They've been in a grand final which they won before too.
Yes.
Yes, but the form of some of their players has been under a cloud. So few of their players have been under a cloud on the score of form now. Reddy, for example, right up till that last game against Parramatta, and I don't think he played football that we've seen from Reddy in the past, even in that one.
Frank, in spite of the rot you wrote in one of the newspapers during the week that the press is persecuting referees...
I didn't say the press, I said the media.
What is the difference? The press, the media, what is the difference? You wrote in the papers that Gary Cook was persecuted, and I object to that word. I've underlined it, see?
Look, Gary Cook represents all the referees as far as I'm concerned.
And so in your broadcast of the match last week, you called, and I gave you a rap in the mirror for this, you called the offside play between Brennan and Quinn.
That's right.
And Did
I go over it and over it and over it and over it? That's what I'm going
you went
to do.
over it. What? All right, can I just say this? Mate, is it all right for you to use it in your call and I'm not allowed to show the same incident here on television? How many times did I show it? Once.
Now, wait a minute. It's the combined efforts of the media.
Well, I'll be quiet and radio can cover it. Is that all right?
Look, the point I make is this. When you show a thing over and over and over...
I didn't show it over and over again.
Well, all right. When a thing is shown over and over and over like that...
Who by?
By the media. And
By the
spoken
media.
of over and over again. The fact is, it's not the referee... No, wait there.
We'll only print one copy of one paper to read about the report of what Cook did.
Be sensible.
I'm being sensible. You can't edit, you can't censor the media.
The fact is, I'm not suggesting you should censor the media, but
Well,
I'm pointing out...
You are saying we're persecuting
I'm
them.
pointing out the fact that the situation among referees at the present time is brought about by the persecution, and I've said it there and I say it again, the persecution of the media.
Wouldn't you like to substitute the words, the reporting of what happens? If it doesn't happen, I can't talk about it.
The fact is, when a thing happens, who are we judging? The referee or the player who made the mistake? The referee who misses something, or the player that makes the mistake? I mean,
we are judging the end result, Frank, of a man who is paid to do a professional job, and he misses something, and we have people who are paid to go and see it, and it is our job to report what went on.
The players are paid to do a professional job too, and they're making more mistakes than referees.
There's a different moral value there. One is affecting the entire outcome of the game, and if people don't want to be put under a microscope, don't be referees. But we're not persecuting them. I object to that loose use of the word.
I'm not concerned what you object to.
You should be, Frank, because in your limited experience in journalism, you should know what the words mean that you use. And you misuse the word persecute.
I said persecute, and I mean persecute.
What does persecute mean? To unjustly attack. Repeatedly.
To unjustly attack. That's right.
And you think that by me once on this program last Sunday reporting and showing what Gary Cook missed is unjust and shouldn't be done. If he can't take that heat...
Did I specifically mention you?
Frank, I'm the only one who did show it. I am the only one who showed it.
I'm not talking about that specific instance. I'm talking about the persecution of referees over the last decade.
Oh,
not any specific instance.
If Greg Hartley in the grand final has 7 tackles before a try is scored, I'm not to mention it or show it.
Of course you can mention
it. Let ignorance be bliss. Let's go back to the Dark Ages and let's have a little bit of an inquisition. You're used to that sort of stuff.
Give equal coverage to the players that make the mistakes.
Oh, well, don't you think we do? We showed all the tries of the match today.
No, you don't, but when you do show it, it's the referee who's on trial, not the player who makes the mistake.
Here's the egg on the face award, Frank.
You can put it on your own face.
I tell you what, Frank, if I want to report the facts, and I've got people writing columns like that, I take objection to it, and I take objection to it on behalf of everyone that covers football.
Well, you speak for yourself. I'll speak for myself, and everything that I wrote
don't you write about newspaper and television reports in a newspaper column like that, which is a load of garbage, because you obviously don't know the meaning of the word.
Well, you just watch me if you tell me not to do it. You just watch me. If I feel so inclined, I will write that.
Well, you're one of the yes men of Phillip Street. That's your problem, Frank. You
always
see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil, and now you're writing bull dust.
I've already pointed out evil.
Pointed out evil. Evil because I say something happened in the Sydney Cricket Ground during a match. You call that evil.
You're doing the wrong thing by showing it over and over.
I'm not showing it over and over and over.
If it's not this week, it's last week, and it will be next week. It's referees, and it has been referees.
want to get your priorities straight.
I've got my priorities
You want to
straight.
tell the public what goes on, not that there's rosy-coloured glasses
I'm telling
out
you
there.
this, if the trend keeps up, well, there'll be football and no referees at all.
Well, that might be better.
Oh.
Okay, well, we've run out of time.
It'd be better for how you look at football.
Well, you're kidding. Excuse me, as working pressman, I'll leave it after this. How do you feel about the word persecuting referees?
I disagree with it, but it didn't rankle me as much as it obviously has you, to be honest, mate. I didn't agree with what Frank said because I think referees are doing a terrible job.
I'm not concerned with who agrees with me. That's as I say it, and that's what I said. And that's what I think, and that's what I'll say.
Well, could I say this to you, Frank? That the referees director, Eric Cox, is one man who certainly doesn't think that the media has persecuted referees. He is the boss of the referees,
That's right.
and he certainly
He's not
doesn't
out
think
there
that.
copying it.
Well, maybe he's not out there, but he has been out there. He is the director of referees, and there aren't any referees that I'm aware of that have rung me or any of my colleagues to argue about the reports that have been written about what has happened on the field.
They're not the type of men to do it.
Oh.
They're a special type of man, a referee, and I
Well,
tell
they
you
should
what,
be able
most
to
of them
take
are a
criticism
credit to the
then, Frank.
game.
Well, no one's saying they're not.
Criticism, it's persecution as far as I'm concerned.
We only said there was a forward pass. What else have we said?
Oh,
Well, really, what have
It's been
we?
going on for 10 years. You're taking this specific instance of Gary Cook. I'm talking about what's been happening to referees over the last decade.
Okay, from now on, okay, folks, no more talk about 7 tackles. No.
Just
Okay.
before we go, Carl, I don't want to talk about referees, but I just have one thing about the grand final, just harking back for 1 minute. Mate, one of the great things we have forgotten about this grand final next week is that the two coaches who have the sides, Bath and Glossop, are two of the probably the only two in Sydney who believe in attacking football. It's a wonderful tribute to see the old skills of the game coming back and sides scoring plenty of tries in important matches, as opposed to the American connection we put up with for so long with defence-orientated games, with psyching up and motivational films. They don't believe in any of that business, and they've got their sides to the grand final. I think they're both great coaches, and it's going to be a great game.
It will be a great grand final. All right, let's have the soccer pools results now, and as you hear, the panel by and large is split between St George and Canterbury. Here is Kim Rann with the soccer pool results.
Here now are the official soccer pools results, another World of Sport feature, presented by Kim Rann.
Well, good afternoon everyone and welcome once again to the pools.
And final up those two. I suppose so. He's a bit casual, isn't he? Tell you what, he's blitzing him at the moment. He loves that Sydney cricket ground. I think he'd like to take it up to Belmore Oval and put it away. It's his ground. Ken Stewart from South Sydney has had a great... Overcomes a right hook which floors Hartley. You get up. What are you going to do? Are you going to send him off?
Well, I'm not going to go down, but if one connects, but I try and stay on my feet. No, I wouldn't send him off, mate.
Do you believe you're putting yourself in an iniquitous position by being involved so close to the players? There's always the chance you're going to land one.
Yeah, I think it's an obligation of a referee to try and stop it before it really gets out of hand. If it is to a situation where they're knocking the tripe out of each other, I don't like to see top players receiving broken noses and broken jaws and things like that. Half the time I don't even know I'm in there. I just sort of...
It's an instinctive thing.
Yeah.
I think you get too close to the action.
No, I've got to be right where it's happening. It's the way I am.
Well, do you ever get criticised by Eric Cox or the appointments board people for close involvement with players? I know I seem to be harping on this, but I don't know any other referee that goes down as much as you.
Yeah, I've been a ground member of every ground in Sydney, actually. But, yes, I've been told on occasion to stay away from them. They're worried about me copping one.
Yeah.
And I try my best to stay away. But all of a sudden I'm back in there and I don't know, I just can't help it.
You use the magic words a lot, like you're off if you don't stop.
Well, I did yesterday.
No truth in the room that you've sold advertising space on the
A couple of times yesterday during the match, you told players to get up. I think one was Fairfax, and I forget who the other one was. Ayliffe, wasn't it? You thought they were foxing?
Yes, I did. And they got up pretty darn quick, too.
Yeah.
Is that an irritating thing? It's an irritating for me as a commentator, and I'm sure to genuine rugby league fans, the way players these days take dives to deliberately get the penalty or try to get the penalty. Does that irritate you as a referee?
It doesn't necessarily irritate me, but it takes my concentration away.
Particularly in the second half there, the ball was just getting as far as the prop's feet before it was popping out.
No, I was pretty happy with them. There was a lot of times, Ferris, the ball come out behind the back line, which is very unusual for first grade.
But
Yeah,
overall, I thought they were pretty good.
Yeah, well, yesterday I thought it was going to be a ripper, and then it died rather badly, in my view. That's a personal expression of opinion. I thought that Canterbury played as well as they needed to play to win. Eastern Suburbs, to me, looked like a side that had had a fortnight's rest. Anyone disagree with that?
No, it's a strange thing at this time of the year. You would think that the clubs would relish having the week off. But obviously, and Bob Fulton, I think he says to you in an interview, doesn't he, that they didn't appreciate the week off, but you've got to play at this time.
Well, let's just ask Greg while we're here. I mean, this is not anything out of school now. You were in closer proximity than anyone else, television-wise or anything. Did Eastern Suburbs appear to run out of gas to you yesterday? You must get impressions as the game's going on.
No, I thought Royce Arliff and Des O'Reilly played, the best they possibly could, fully for the full length of time. They didn't appear to run out of gas, but they were very flat.
But Canterbury, fair dinkum, Greg, Canterbury outgunned East yesterday, didn't they? Don't you think they? Oh, there's no doubt about that.
Fantastic defence.
I think you'd be taken away from Canterbury to say that East were flat.
Oh, come on.
Oh, they played the same game as they
no
played
one
the week
watches East
before.
more closely than I do, and Eastern Suburbs were.
Where were you?
Yes. I was
Where
watching
were you?
very closely.
What time did you get there?
Now, I'll be like that. At least I was.
The point, it was half-time, 5-4. Wasn't it 10 minutes into the second half? That's when the game was finished off. There were 2 tries, and that was the ball game as far as that was concerned. It was 13-4, and that was the finish.
On that performance yesterday, that wasn't the way East has been playing. Hastings had a very quiet game yesterday. Cleel. There was a number of players you could put the finger at yesterday, which is not their usual form. Hastings has been a tower of strength, particularly in defence and attack, and yesterday he never raised a gallop.
Well, there was a suggestion written in the paper this morning. I'm only reporting what I've read. I think it was in the Printer, Jeff Printer column.
Yes, it was.
And in the Sun Herald, and he said that Hastings said he wasn't offering any excuses, but his children had a bad night. He's got 2, evidently, and they gave them a bit of a sleepless night. I'm just a bit concerned about... I'm just a bit concerned about the aspect of why Hastings would stay in the proximity of children when he's got a big important game up. Why not do what a lot of other players did, leave home all the year? Wouldn't the sensible thing to do be get out of the house or go and sleep with the in-laws or do something or other? I've done it.
Well contained yesterday, just to say, no matter
Yes,
how
I
a
think
lot of them were.
Irrespective of whether East were flat or not, you've got to give a lot of credit to Canterbury for their performance. Just I agree with you, and they played superb.
They outclassed Eastern Suburbs on the day yesterday. But East had aided and abetted the debacle by the fact that they dropped so many parts, that they had the ball in many attacking positions and spilled it and were able Canterbury to recover it.
Greg, what did you think of the ball? Did you see the ball yesterday before they played?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about the balls, and I've inspected them for 2 weeks, and quite frankly...
The 2 we had of Wright, I was amazed with when Wright was taken off as a goal kicker. You've got a guy kicking 2 good goals from acute angles, and suddenly the preconceived plan is that Hastings kicks the ones from in front. He gets the ones in front, kicked the ground, and scuffed it away to the left. I don't think he kicked it dead either, did he? From memory, I can't remember that. So I can't. Why wouldn't the club be flexible enough to? It was a first-class tackle too. You'll see this could have been a try, and Morris is. Sorry, not Morris. Mortimer's all over Wright like a rash there in the middle of the field.
Same token, Wright tackled well yesterday as well, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He had a fair game.
Did a lot of front-on tackling yesterday, Wright.
Good.
I was surprised.
It's basically just a bruise. I've been getting a little bit worse each week, but I'm very pleased to have the 2 weeks off.
No chance of you missing the grand final?
No chance at all.
Anybody else hurt from yesterday?
I've got a couple of guys with a few corks and a few bumps and bruises there, but nothing serious.
Gary, yesterday you had a different back line outside of you with Peter Mortimer back in his normal spot in the centre position and Brentnell full-back. Did it upset your pattern at all?
No, I don't think so, Frank. I think all of the guys who play in our team are very good users of the ball. Greg Brentnell, he's played all of his football at full-back up until last season when he transferred to the centre there. And Peter Mortimer, as he proved yesterday, is a very talented centre.
There's no doubt about that.
Gary, Canterbury lost their 2 preliminary games to Easts, yet you came out yesterday and beat them pretty convincingly. What made the difference?
I think our defence yesterday was a big factor when we played Easts in the first round at the cricket ground. We were in a bit of a slump there, and they beat us very easily. And I think at that period in the season we lost about 3 games on the trot.
It's amazing that, you know, as Ray mentioned yesterday, you played a team that had beaten you in both first and second round, but you also played a team the week before that beat you in the first and second round rather convincingly, and you've beaten both of them. That must be a tremendous boost to the morale going into the grand final.
Yeah, it certainly is. Obviously, when you lose to sides twice during the season, you learn a lot from it, and that's helped us in the past 2 weeks.
Will you consider that the semi-final football and final is a different ball game altogether to the 2 rounds of the competition?
It certainly is, Frank, with the exception of our 2 guys up front, John Cavanagh and Jeff Robinson, who are playing very good football at the moment. All our guys are involved in these games at the end of last season and standing us in good stead at the moment.
Gary, how much better is Canterbury this year than last year?
Oh, it's pretty hard to gauge on a points scale. You know, we've got a chance in 2 weeks to prove how much better we are.
You certainly have. And was there any stage yesterday that you felt that that Eastern Suburbs could have got on top of you?
Yeah, very hard side to play against, East. They always use the ball very well, and they're very capable side. They've got guys like Boosted and Clurl out in the backs who can cause plenty of problems. I don't think we were ever confident. You know, I think when we got in front 13-4 there in the second half, we were travelling pretty well, but it's such a close competition, you can't feel too confident against any side.
Any plans to go into camp at all leading up to the grand final, or will you stay in your normal positions?
I think our attitude at Canterbury is just to do what we always do.
Fair enough.
Thanks, Gary, for coming on the show today. With the compliments of Sax Altman, we'd like to present you with this sports jacket and sports trousers, which will be tailored to measure. And once you get the grand final out of the way, you'll be looking your spruce self in this Sax Altman suit. Congratulations, Gary, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks very much,
Have the knee holes up. After this commercial break, we'll be back with some talk about a footballer turned vocalist.
Stevie Mortimer. Yep. Chief Paponis. Steve Mortimer. Peter Mortimer. Chris. Greg Brednall out there. Peter Mortimer. Over halfway. His winger. Downfield. Steve Gearin for the corner. Fairfax beaten easily. And Steve Gearin a good try. From head on, you'll see the extent of that beautiful little swerve there by Steve Gearin. Now this is the pass from Brednall back to Peter Mortimer, and he made good ground downfield. He saw his winger inside. Now Gearin went for the corner. Fairfax came across, and Fairfax couldn't get him in to score. Canterbury working themselves in a good position all the time. Gary Hughes. Robinson. Straight and hard up the middle to Graham Hughes. Paponis, and Paponis under the post. A doubtful final pass, but Paponis has scored under the post. In to score. Canterbury working themselves in a good position all the time. Gary Hughes. Robinson. Straight and hard up the middle to Graham Hughes. Paponis, and Paponis under the post. Paponis looking around for Brednall. There he is. And Hastings followed it through. A kick is across field. Fairfax, well taken. Gary Hughes. Brednall dropping back behind the post. Fairfax. Now Brednall's waiting. Beautiful leap. Timed his leap to perfection. Should be on the MCG.
I think he may have hurt himself there too. He's straight on his back. He felt very heavy with Russell Fairfax on top of him. But what a fine take.
And he's still looking for their first try. Will this be it? Warneke to Aylett, and the skipper's over. It was always on there, though. And Gary Warneke made the initial break, and there's Aylett backing up.
And so the winner of today's match plays Eastern Suburbs in the preliminary final next week, and the winner of that one goes on to the grand final to play Canterbury Bankstown. The dressing room after the match, here's Peter Peters.
Canterbury half, Steve Mortimer. Can I get you out of the shower for a sec, Steve? Yes, Peters. Congratulations. Great win. Thank you very much. It was a great team effort today. Yeah, it was. Easier win than you expected? No, very hard game. Our forwards took it right up to them today and met them, and that's what won the game for us today. What about the big one now? Who do you think you'll be playing?
Mate, I don't know, but if you're going to be premiers, you've got to be able to beat anyone, and we've only got one to go.
How much a better side are you than last year?
Experience, we're a 100% better side. That's the difference.
It was probably one of the best performances of the side today. all year. You've had a lot of trouble with these.
Well, it was a great tackling performance for our blokes. It's just a shame that we let them into that one try. And, you know, we held them out there for about a quarter of an hour. Great effort for the blokes like Stevie Folks and Johnny Cobley and George and all the other forwards. It's a great tackling effort.
Before today's game, they had an 8-try-to-2 advantage of you with tries. Were you well aware of that before the game?
Oh yeah, we were, but we always thought that we hadn't played up to our best ability against them in both rounds, and we knew that we just had to go out there and just keep plugging away and tackling and throw the ball about in our usual style and back each other up.
Graham, cricket must seem a long way off for you when you're going forward to 2 weeks away from a grand final.
So I just like to think about the grand final and shake hands with Peterson after that.
I don't think the week's rest did us much good this week, and whoever we...
Yeah, I don't think that was East true form, do you?
No, we can play a lot better. I think we can beat the team we played today. You know, they played a lot better than us, and we played pretty bad. We dropped plenty of ball, and that was the story of the game, I think.
You've had 2 solid weeks training. Do you think you've really missed the match play?
Well, I think it might have seemed that way today. I'm not sure. If we would have won today, we would have said the week's rest would have did us the world of good. Now we've lost, we can make excuses and say the week's rest didn't do us any good whatsoever. So I think it's just our bad play and nothing else.
It's a very difficult question to answer. What happened to Eastern Suburbs? You could say Canterbury Bankstown played so well that they didn't let Eastern Suburbs play well. But I'm sure that the people who saw East perform all the year didn't come away from the Sydney Cricket Ground terribly impressed with yesterday's performance. To answer those questions, here's Bob Fulton. He's talking to the terrible duo from Rugby League. My father has drummed into us, both me, Peter, the whole family do, that tackling's a big part of the game, you know, so I've been working on my tackling and, well, hopefully it's paid off, you know.
It must be hard to sort of to stay up with Steve, who's I don't have to tell you how good he is, and Peter, who's played for the state, and of course you've always done the job there. But your defence today was unbelievable, really.
Yeah, well they do have some sort of encouragement. It's very handy to be playing alongside one brother out right next to me and Stephen, well, 2 away.
Well, Chris, for today's effort, you're through to the grand final, and we've got $100 for you from Sustagen for being our sustained tackler, and you had to beat a lot of good defensive players today.
Thanks very much, Peter. And the Sustagen, I'd like to know who contributes most to this try. And, you know, you fellas talk about Gary Hughes as though he's a fixation in your mind. Steve Mortimer is the one. If you stop Steve Mortimer, you're halfway to beating Canterbury.
He gave the ball to Steve Mortimer.
Gary Hughes?
Yeah, never has to play the ball. I doubt whether he's played the ball this season.
OK, gentlemen, of those two, who do you nominate?
Steve Mortimer.
First try. Yeah, well, OK, that's back to square one. Thank you. Steve Mortimer wins. With the compliments of Kevin Junee, some Nike shoes and also some training pants. Kevin Junee's stores are at Bondi Junction, Kensington, and also at the Angel Place in the city. Kevin Junee.
Form that they put on the board happened in the second half, didn't it? They were quite outplayed in the first half.
Yes, for about a 10-minute period in the second half.
Yeah, but there were factors involved last week that may not be in evidence today. For example, Lease was just recovering from blood poisoning. And
he didn't offer that as an excuse.
He didn't, but it was there just the same.
Yeah. Here's Mortimer setting up another try. Great work.
Getting back to Lease, I think if Lease operates, both the half Neil and Lamb operate too.
Yes, West scored 3 tries in the second half of this game, which was more tries than they've scored in 4 previous visits to the Sydney Cricket Ground semi-final football. Roy Masters obviously feels from that West are going to throw away the aggression and start playing football, and I think we'll see that today, although I think the first 20 minutes of today's game is going to be something like a grand final, something we've been waiting for.
It has to be. It's both their styles.
And I think a lot depends on how much authority Goodwin plays in the centre with.
Well, he's got the flair to create havoc, hasn't he, Goodwin? But will they get a lot of ball for him to be able to create this havoc? There's a lot of doubts about that.
In current rugby league, Jeff, there's enough ball from broken play to win any game, whether you win the scrums or not.
Well, they've got the players, haven't they, to win, to score tries from broken play.
There's the first of Western Suburbs, 3 tries in the second half. That was the McLeod's try after 9 minutes. We're coming up with a head-on shot of that again. You see, it was a good try. Then, at the 16-minute mark, Neil and Cooper combined, with Cooper going in for the try.
But they've got more players in the team, Frank. do or disagree, that are capable of scoring tries
That's
in
right.
St George.
Yes, but you've got a St George side, Jeff, that beat South Sydney by 16-5, and as far as I'm concerned, had a lot in reserve in that game against South Sydney. Now, this side is grinding towards a grand final, and they're going to be hard to beat there this afternoon.
I can't always agree, Frank, when you say that sides are playing with something in reserve or sides will rise to the occasion.
Yep.
You can only base it on what they do on the day.
Well,
I thought Saints
what-
beat South pretty well, but had to battle pretty hard.
Oh, it didn't appear
No,
so
I
to
didn't
me.
think
I
so.
thought they could have coped with anything.
But
that
why
South
didn't
put
they,
in.
Frank? It was a sudden
They
death
did.
semi-final.
Well, 16-5 is not a, it's not a close win in a semi-final, is it?
Yes, I agree. I think St George did it well, and I think they'll do the same thing to Western Suburbs today. Although I don't think there's going to be a big margin in the final score. I think St George will get there, but players like Quinn and Finch just don't make mistakes in big games, and they both scored you probably don't see them score a try all year, but they bobbed up with a try each in the game that mattered last week, and I think we'll find that again today.
When you're assessing this game, there are probably more weaknesses in Western Suburbs than there are in St George, especially for this type of football. There are players there that I think could falter under pressure, whereas I can't see any player in that St George side you could say is a risk.
Well, it didn't turn out that way in the second round when Western Suburbs played St George at Lidcombe Oval. West were the winners 15 points to 10. So let's see West shaping up against St George and analyse the two teams. After 25 minutes, Brian Johnson went in for a brilliant try, and that Brian Johnston went in for a brilliant try, and that opened the score. Here's the replay head on. There's some doubt about the corner post, but it was a fair try, as my memory serves me. Here's a fellow who'll probably have a big one today, as usual, Craig Young.
Again, I emphasise that I don't think that you can take into consideration the performances in the first or second round. We have a case there with Canterbury. We're beaten twice by West and beat West. Canterbury beaten twice by East and beat East.
Yeah.
And the semi-final football different altogether.
No try there. Lamb put up the bomb. At the 35-minute mark, Reddy spills the ball and Lease goes in for the try.
Yes, and a lot of people are saying that Rocket should be in the side. That's part of the reason why he's not. And of course, West did it hard this game.
That's right. Merlo
was sent off, and they still managed to win. But then we get the same old thing about West. They perform at Lidcombe and don't do it at the cricket ground.
And what an incredible thing about St George, though. I mean, 8 weeks ago, Rod Reddy was probably voted the best forward in the world. Agree?
But his handling's just gone out the window.
We played for 23 minutes last week and didn't show anything like the form that made him.
Well, Frank, he gave a beautiful pass for a try, which was dropped by his support, and it would have been.
Make any
it was
mistakes,
clever.
Frank, did he?
Oh, yes, he did. I
think
felt
he did?
he was very tentative there in that 23 minutes. I mean, if anyone can suggest that was Reddy at his top, well, I'm a
well, we haven't seen Reddy at his top for about 2 or 3 months.
There's a brilliant try by Neil here, 14-10.
Well, I think if St George are to win today, the following players have to improve immensely. Robert Stone, John Jansen, Robert Finch, and both the wingers.
Well, I think they will improve, and I think we'll see Rod Reddy in the game. I can't
Week to get fit. I don't think it's all that devastating to have them in the side.
Well, Peter, let's get on with it. You tip St George, do you?
I tip St George.
Frank?
I tip St George, yeah.
All right, there we go. Let's have a commercial break and we'll be back. The Dally M Awards, and Jeff Fenner and Peter Peters will make a special award for the Player of the Year from Rugby League Week. To report by courtesy of Channel 10.
Afterwards, there were refreshments for the players. Yes, the grand final is only 3 days away. And Steve Mortimer does not appear to be off his food. Will it be grand final fever or grand final heartburn? Who knows? Today's racing was a...
And final victory is certain to mark the end of a triumphant career for their captain, George Paponis. How does he see the big one on Saturday?
I think it's going to be a very tight game. I think it's going to be a lot tighter than last Saturday's final was. You know, we've got a lot of experience out of last year's grand final. We know what it's like to come off there losing and watching another side do the victory lap of honour, and that feeling you can't get except for playing in a grand final.
And in yachting, Australia has just one.
Goes, there are a few more interesting characters in football than the opposing halfbacks Steve Mortimer and Kevin Hastings. And it could well be that the tussle between these two Gamecocks will decide the outcome of the match on Saturday. Their styles are in marked contrast. Mortimer is an attacking player of rare brilliance, while Hastings' attack has improved 50% this year and his defence is a legend. Here's what Hastings thinks of his arch rival when he talks about East.
Very impressed with East form. I think it's a good thing that they won so well, because if there was a hint of complacency in our side, it's certainly gone out the window now. And I think we know what East, we know what we're up against with East, and I think East now what they're up against too.
While tonight's training winds up both teams' preparations, Ken Sutcliffe reports that neither Canterbury nor Bondi Junction has caught the grand final bug.
With 4,000 tickets remaining unsold, interest in this year's grand final is best typified in the traditional coloured bread, and apparently business has been good. This butcher showed some enterprise, naming his cuts of meat. You can buy the Ted Glossop pickled pork, Big Robbo's bulk rumps, and Gary Hughes chump chops. Apparently, Steve Mortimer's baking legs have been the big seller. Bulldog fever can also be seen in the street, but at the Leagues Club, one could hardly say excitement has reached fever pitch. And so, overall, the build-up to League's biggest day has been relatively flat. Hopefully...
So there you go. Royce, was Bobby Fulton's plan translated through you? Was the win calculation as far as East were concerned?
Yeah, we played as per plan, Rex. I think Canterbury were just a better team on the day. I think they played very well. I says it was a great advantage, but we didn't capitalise on it, and Canterbury scored their first try and went ahead with the game.
In the second half, you couldn't get through the Canterbury defence?
Well, not really, because to send the ball wide, it was our game plan to get Canterbury going backwards firstly, by sending the ball back inside, and there's no use sending the ball out wide, and if you're not getting going backwards, they use umbrella-type defence, which I think we worked out, and we didn't want it to send the ball wide until we got them going backwards.
Could I make a comment to see Noel Kelly's not going to say anything today, and
that's all right.
I know you've had a bad night too. I want to address a remark to George. George and I know each other pretty well. I hope he won't take this as a criticism. I thought you'd been a bit flat for about 4 or 5 weeks. I would have thought that you were playing like a bloke coming towards his retirement with not much incentive, and then suddenly the team gets into the big games. And I thought yesterday was the best game I've seen you play for a number of seasons. Have you got any explanation? Was it psychological, or have you been carrying an injury, or what's the story?
Oh, just save yourself for the big ones, Rex.
Bloody confident he was going to be in the big one, wasn't he?
Yes.
Has he been carrying an injury?
No, he's been playing well. I disagree with you. I think he's been playing well, particularly in the semi-final.
That's the beautiful part about a democracy, isn't it?
Yes, I can have an opinion.
Yes, that's right. We even allow school teachers to have opinions.
Yes, but I thought George did have a big game yesterday.
We both agreed on that.
One of many.
I think that the week before, Royce...
Pretty ordinary stuff, I thought. I couldn't see anything exceptional. What's the good about
this? He asked me to say something. I say something.
No, well, just have a look at this, sir.
I can't see anything.
They've just put it on for you.
Yeah, do you reckon that would have knocked a bit of the wind out of East sails, like making those breaks and then getting clipped right at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, like I said, there normally tries them ones like that. I think in the game, Stevie Moore, he did it a number of times.
And the short side too, when that happens, like, you know,
sure.
sort of you're running around, you're going backwards, and Turvey pulls off a great tackle like that.
Turvey.
And then,
what do you call him?
Turvey.
I think with his tackles, plus a couple of Bowies too, weren't real bad tackles, and they were the whole of the game.
When you see something like that happen.
Ted, are you going to become you are with Canterbury next year? Let's get that formally announced out in the open, right? Are you going to get some motivational films and gridiron films and stuff, and have the boys sitting there doing that sort of thing? Do you believe in that sort of business?
I'm not putting it down. No, I personally don't believe in that. I feel that first-grade footballers, particularly first-grade footballers, are self-motivated or have to be self-motivated. And if they're not, I don't know. I think you could show cartoons and make a script up to suit the cartoon. If that motivated your side, you'd use it. But I personally have not found that I've needed motivational films for the players that I have. So therefore, that's the basis of my thinking on it.
Well, Ted, you've got a big start and everything else. You've got all the families in there. You've got more families than the
Godfather. I'm always a bit loath to criticise George. I'm never quite sure what... He's got the look of a Godfather about him, hasn't he? With that beard and so on. George, can I ask you one question? Excuse me, Cole. Were the side sent out by Ted with any instruction? Was it ever said, enjoy yourselves?
It's been said throughout the semi-final series to go out. You know, obviously everyone wants to win, and that's the whole aim of the object.
But on several occasions...
That's a refreshing remark.
Just before we go out, Ted's turned around and said, now go out and enjoy yourself.
Look at this.
But that's part of Canterbury's play. It's the same play.
I know, but it just in a grand final, it was outrageous sort of stuff to pull
enjoying
off.
himself.
They're enjoying themselves.
Well, I'm not a member of the Ted Glossop fan club. I'm not on that side, but I'd like to congratulate Ted because I think that his...
Oh, he's getting off it now.
Red, white, and blue rag you had on last
and
week.
no motivation, all this business. I think it's been overdone. I think the role of some of these coaches is getting out of hand.
Wow.
One thing I'd like to ask George, a lot of reports that this yesterday was your final match, George. What is going to happen with you next year? I know you're starting up a new, another practice.
It'd be a good one to go out on, wouldn't it? No, I intend to just go on their end of season trip and enjoy a bit of sunshine over in South Africa and...
Not play any football there?
Certainly not.
Good.
Far from it.
Coming into that game yesterday, Ted, you had two fresh reserves. And it was a club spirit yesterday because you kept them on the touchlines away from the reserve grade match. Did you have any doubts about the reserve grade at all? I know first grade is the most important thing, but the reserve grade did come up with two players sitting on the touchline as reserves for yours, which took a bit of strength away from the reserve grade side.
Yes, we do have a lot of feeling within the club, and I work very closely with grand final, that I would take and sit on the bench one forward and one back. And I was very fortunate in having two players, Lee Pomfret, who can cover a host of positions in the back line. They would have been key players for the reserve grade, but the way the reserve grade fought for that win yesterday, it just added to the feeling that we had yesterday.
Well, a top game of football it was too.
That was a good game.
Very exciting.
Must have given you a tremendous, your players, a tremendous boost before they went out to see that.
Rex asked about motivational films.
You had one out there, didn't you?
We had a self-made one, and we were due to go out possibly 15 minutes before we were going out to play our own grand final, and all the first grade were watching out the window to seeing our reserve grade do the lap of honour, and you could
That's
just
all you need, isn't it? Yeah, you don't need any films with that on.
That was one of the disappointments yesterday.
Oh, wait a minute. Alan, just a minute. We might be going to get a little gem here.
I don't think you really need motivational films around semi-final time. It's just to be there.
Everyone knows what it's about, and you've got enough pride in yourself, semi-final time, you want to do it.
Well, that's part of being a first-grade rugby league.
Something for the viewers, different little things. We've happened to have seen a couple more of these beautiful Mortimer tackles. This is another great one coming up, and congratulations to our backpack camera for getting these shots too.
Beautiful.
They're real good ones, weren't they?
Royce didn't
miss one.
Yeah, I think that's the last one on the tapes that we have. I'll just get a thumbs up from the floor manager there. All right, so Canterbury win the first grade, they win the reserve grade. The prognosis is a very successful 1981 with the same players. Or are you losing any players for next year?
No, we're not.
George is playing, eh?
George didn't answer your question. I'm surprised as a journalist you didn't pursue that.
My friend here on the right came in and asked a question.
Yeah, but I'm surprised you didn't pursue it.
I won't interrupt.
All he said he was going to have a good time in South Africa.
Yes,
and rest
I
of
know, but I've...
And George, what next year?
And what?
And think about it.
And think
so
about it.
you are not retiring, George?
I'll think about it.
Ted, just talking about one of your...
He is just a pretty face.
Reserve grade players, Gill in the lock. Good player, good future?
Yes, a very fine player.
Also
a player that is playing lock forward at the moment. I used Alan against East in the two premiership games in the second row, and he's a young player, but he played well against a very good pack of forwards, as you know, with East. He also plays 5'8", but a very fine young player, very strong player.
But you now must be aware that you need much bigger front rowers in your side. You've been told that. How many times have you been told that? How many times have you been told it?
Well, I don't listen too often to what people say or write, but quite a number of times, practically every week that we play. But
it's not the size of the dog in the fight, is it?
No, it's
the size of the fight in the dog.
No, I'd say here that I would rather be able to play Jeffrey Robinson in the second row. He's doing a job for me that full marks for Jeff too. He's doing a job in the front row, but I think that Jeff might sound surprising. I think Jeff could be more of a force playing in the second row.
What are you going to do? Put him in a tank?
Has his wife done anything for him, man? She had a
She's doing a marvellous job. She's just about to
get family yet?
No,
nothing up for the last few minutes. We checked that with the phone. Royce, going through yesterday, a lot of people not necessarily the people around this table, but a lot of people that write rugby league were saying that East Pack was going to win this game, that big matches are won by big packs and East were a bigger pack and so forth. It didn't work out that way at all, really. At no stage looking at it did East look as though they were ever going to get on top of the Canterbury pack. Does that conform with your view of the game or not?
Yeah, I think they played very well, the Canterbury forwards. They just kept coming at us, and in defence they just kept tackling. I personally, there's no way you could have busted them in attack.
I had the impression, watching the game, that East were waiting for Aleph to make a bust at some stage, to unload one of his good passes, to put somebody into the clear, as you've been doing regularly, and when it didn't happen, there were no other ideas.
There was nothing happening. I can't really put it down to anything, Rex. I just say that Canterbury played well. We like I said, we couldn't bust them in.
There was a time late in the game, Royce, when Kenny Wright did a little chip over the top, which was a little bit of variety, and I think some of the crowd applauded it. Yeah. It didn't come off perfectly.
It was variation.
But there was no variation early on, was there?
Not. No,
were you getting your signals from upstairs?
Yeah.
Was he semaphoring right and so? Have you ever seen Bozo more grim-faced yesterday? Before the game, I'm not talking about after, I'm not talking about him being a bad loser.
Not really, but let's face it, you know, there's only one winner out there today. We did it pretty tough, and like you said, Bozo's a winner.
Yeah, you better believe it.
I think he's done a terrific job with us this year. He's moulded a number of young guys, you know. We're all a young team, and not just the first grade, but the whole 3 grades, and he's put us into a good club.
Question I've got to ask you too, apropos age. I've been one of the people that's tended to think of you as older than you are. I know your age. How old were you when you captained the Australian schoolboys side?
I was 15.
Yes, it worked out that way. You're 23 now, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of people have been thinking Alep's, 26, 27, not 31 like George.
By the time he's 27 or 28, they'll all be saying he should be retired.
I just thought I'd involve you in the conversation there. If you won't give us a direct answer to whether you're retiring or not, we're going to give you a bad time. All right. Roger, don't ever go to George if you get any problems, incidentally.
Don't come today.
Don't come today. The old scalp would be a bit shaky today, wouldn't it?
It's in good order.
Royce, did the announcement about the East signing up Rocky Laurie for 2 years, did that cause any troubles in the camp, any worries with the players?
No, I don't think most of the guys didn't really know until the press came out, and it was just flatly denied.
Oh, flatly denied.
But it was a fact, wasn't it? I mean, the signing was made. I'm convinced it must have had some bearing on something or other.
I think it'd only be human nature that anyone that's playing
it was a very good bit of counter-espionage by Canterbury next to rock the information out and let it out.
I think it would make everyone try a little bit harder, I think, you know.
Let's don't take anything against Rocky. He's not going to sort of be the type of guy that's going to walk straight into Eastern Suburbs.
No, quite so. Quite so.
Great team.
Yeah. Well, I think if your position was at stake, George, you'd have gone in there and tried harder, wouldn't you?
Sure.
That's exactly right. Well, it was a grand final, and you were playing for a grand final the first time in your career. What would you do?
You don't need any more incentive.
You don't need any more incentive.
Some of the junk that gets in the rag anyway, you wouldn't even read, would you?
Well, you're sitting next to a journalist. Do you want to qualify?
Hey, you're all right, Al. Sure,
thanks, mate.
Your shout-out.
My shout-out.
Some of my best friends are. Well, now, we've discussed the game. Just in final summation of it, if anyone's interested in my personal opinion on it, it was not a great grand final in the sense of being, or it can't have been because the score was too diversified. There was never a point. Diverse, apart. There was never a time when the score was going from one team to the other, so that way you get the classic sort of a game. But I thought there were some magnificent moments in the game. I thought the game reached very high standard at certain times. But mostly it was generated by the Canterbury Bankstown side. Most of the very exciting play, with a few occasional flashes from your wingers, which were picked off by Mortimer. But the East forwards were a big disappointment to me on the day. Was that a fair summing up?
I still think that the grand finals lacked the old first 20 minutes of a bit of swish. I fair think about it. Yesterday, you go out and you look for that. You look for it, I think, and I think a lot's taken out of the game. Particularly a grand final.
I thought dinosaurs were gone long ago.
A little bit of swish comes
every grand final.
You've got to go out and get stuck into it for a while.
And they were passing
the pace of it. You don't think so? Listen, Satcher's in Sydney, and he's probably watching.
I watched grand finals when I was a kid and that, but you know the way I'm not knocking the referees, but the legal players just completely out.
Yeah.
You only got a blink too out.
Well, a legal player, is it completely out? I thought you were lucky there once or twice yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Did you on each occasion, you were holding the ball in your hand, which makes you a sitting duck, I know, and you're trying to palm off a bloke, so you really can't do much except
But you are going to go if you keep doing that, you know. You are going to go.
I've woken up to the fact that, yeah, I've gone off before.
Yeah, well, don't go again. You've got a tab on it. Second time, 8 weeks.
Try 10.
There might have been one of those. Anyway, anyone else want to say anything on the grand final before we go on
I'd
to
like
general
to.
topics?
Firstly, I'd like to congratulate Canterbury. I'd like to congratulate East for being there, and I thought that Canterbury thoroughly deserved their win yesterday. As you pointed out, I thought their forwards just completely outplayed the Eastern Suburbs pack. I thought that they were a very, very competent team, and I think that the experience gained last year from the grand final was a tremendous asset to them, just as it will be an asset to Eastern Suburbs next year.
Quite cuts both ways.
And the controversy about whether the week's layoff does any good or harm is still left open.
Do you think so?
Well,
No doubt about it. It all depends what you want.
Yeah, I'd like to add my congratulations too. We sat here last year, Ted, and you were defeated in the grand final. We got accused of being the Ted Glossop fans. I said commiseration soon, but I'd done a lot for the game of rugby league last year. Canterbury and St George, you've won it this year, and congratulations to the Canterbury club and the way it's been played.
First?
Yeah, congratulations to Canterbury. They deserved it, and their form through the year was good.
There's a big... Oh, God.
No, we've all said congratulations to all the boys. I thought it was a real good grand final anyway, and the better side on the day one. I thought Canterbury have put their game together better over the last 3 games that I've seen them play at the Cricket Ground, and they've been the form side and deserve to get up there and win it. Congratulations all around.
Just before I do, you talked about that rumour that was in the paper there, and that was alleged to have come from a very Bulldog supporter, and I work with that particular fellow, and to you and Des Hoisted. He flatly denies anything statement, that one, and I certainly go along with it, but never came from Des Hoisted or anybody attached to the Canterbury club. So it was futile and even to talk about that.
Well, if it's known by the press, it's going to come out, regardless. It's not
It
the
certainly
press
wasn't made by Des Hoisted, let me assure you.
It was got fairly common usage there for a while.
Water under the bridge anyway, isn't it?
It was water under the bridge now. Well, let's just talk about a few other aspects of rugby league at this point in time. The high mortality rate on coaches is continuing, with now Peards gone, of course, now Dennis Tutty. He's feeling all right?
Fairly fragile.
He's been through that, Ted.
And the name of Graham Lowe, the Queensland...
yes, he coached Northern Suburbs.
Northern Suburbs.
With the Premiership.
New Zealand,
yep. He's one that's under consideration.
Have you heard any other names there?
Oh, there are another couple that have been bandied around. There were a couple from down the south coast that were mentioned.
Fitzgibbons.
Fitzgibbon was one that was mentioned. But
I tell you what, they'd have to be giving them a big start coming into this league to be able to make a success of it,
obviously,
with new teams.
I've always felt so. I think coaches have got the worst death rate of anyone around. If you don't succeed, you're out. It's
pretty cold-blooded, isn't it?
It's a cold-blooded business.
Why don't you start a trade union for coaches? At least you might be able to get them the year of their first contract.
Yes, the affiliation fee would have to be very high. I think, actually.
What about Manly, Rex?
Ted, as a coach, do you feel that you can get right into the coaching scene in 1 year with a club, in your first year with a club?
No, I think that it's ludicrous to ask anyone to coach a side on a 1 year basis.
I agree with you.
You develop with the team, you develop with the players. And if that's what it's all about, that you build up a knowledge of the players, not just their football ability either, a knowledge of the men themselves. That's right. How they react to certain situations.
Yes,
12 months is a ridiculous...
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I've said it before.
Maybe they'll sack the Cronulla committee, because I reckon they've got to make the biggest mistake losing you.
That's in hindsight.
No, I
thought it was a terrible thing at the time, and Ted knows my feelings on it. I interviewed you the day it happened.
It's the best thing that ever happened to Ted.
But nonetheless, that's hindsight first. You're famous for your hindsight.
Hey, that's the shortest tenure in Canterbury. The shortest tenure in history.
Makes to put in an effort. You can hang on to that. Hang on to that, Bill. Makes it easy for you, mate, if the other blokes are doing their job.
Yeah. What happens with Canterbury now? You've got the nucleus at the top side, haven't you?
Yeah, well, we're just going to relax for 2 weeks, go to South Africa and enjoy a bit of sunshine and just soak it all up. I think we're entitled to after 10 months of hard work.
Well, they say in football circles and sporting circles generally, the winners can laugh and the losers can please themselves. In the East dressing room, because I don't think Eastern Suburbs really played well, it was a rather despondent attitude of most people. So Peter Peters had the difficult job of going into the East dressing room and talking to first...
Around it, or try and race around it towards the latter part of when he was playing this year, and he was obviously...
Up front and the forwards from the sideline, how was it out there?
kangaroo tour.
Yep. We've
A lot
already
of courage
discussed
getting
the
back.
Rocky Laurie signing for Eastern Suburbs. I think most of us are agreed perhaps the timing was not great. It could have been maybe kept under wraps for another week.
How do you keep it under wraps?
Well, don't do it that week, so you don't have anything to disclose, all right? That would have been the clever thing to do, wouldn't you think?
I would think so.
Yes,
But
very.
Souths have got a pretty decent sort of replacement now, I think we're just going to
Yes,
mention.
well, we're going to mention the fact that Michael Patterson from Parramatta has now signed with the South Sydney club, as has Graham Murray. And also 3 other players, Mountier, Mossman and Metcalf from Eastern Suburbs.
3 M's.
Have all gone to South Sydney. Now, that's hot from the horse's mouth. He must be very keen on M's, Murray, Mountier, Mossman and Metcalf.
Right.
It's no good
How
for
many
you,
of those are
George,
local
or
to
you,
you,
Royce.
A few of them.
2 of those locals, Royce, I think.
Mossman, Metcalf.
Mossman and Metcalf, well, they're both, Souths and East are sister clubs, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think we ought to give congratulations before you move off there to the Parramatta under-23s. Unfortunately, they lost a reserve grade to Canterbury, but they're the only team we haven't mentioned, so it's congratulations to the under-23s of Parramatta too.
Yeah, well, I gave them $5,000 the week before, so they got plenty,
Well, they didn't have
plenty of
one at that
congratulations
stage,
from us at ATN. Jeff Masterman, the country first hooker, has been signed for Eastern Suburbs. They're running out of hookers. Mountier gone, Mountier evidently is taking legal action against the club too.
Yes, over some
Over
contract.
some contractual business, which I'm sure Royce would like to make a quote on. Stay out of it. No. Craig Young has been retained by St George
For 2 years.
for 2 years, which
And they're,
now
and they're confident about retaining Graham Wynn and Rocket Reddy.
there were a number of players, a number of clubs after Craig Young. I think there were 5 clubs had made him offers on the grapevine, and it's from St George's point of view, it's great to see them retain him, and it would make much more obvious that they would retain other people they wanted with him there, I would think. We've mentioned Dennis Tuckey. We've conjectured about who's going to take his place. Again, to the Rugby League, I know they made every effort to keep people off the ground yesterday. They made PA announcements. They had a thin line of policemen around the ground, but I don't know. I just think that a team that battles all the year should have the right to a free run around without having every goose in the world hanging on. Now, I know a lot of them were young, enthusiastic supporters, but I saw a couple of supporters about 27 or 28 out there too, and we don't need that.
It shows you one thing, only there's a couple of idiots and the rest follow.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened yesterday.
Straight after the game.
No, I agree with you, Jeff. I thought it was one of his best efforts, if not his best effort this season.
And the game generally?
Great game and a great result.
And Ted Glossop will be there again next year?
Yes, yes. Take me a while to get over this, but I'll be there next year. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Jeff.
There it is, the winning, the losing.
Not to thank my teammates, because the position I do play in is on the wing, and to achieve a Player of the Year award from the wing, I think a lot of what's the word?
The accolade?
Yeah, accolade. A lot of accolades go to the players inside me, and I'm very, very grateful to them and my coach. Thank
That's
you.
nicely said. Come sit in your motor car, my friend. It's a beautiful car. I own one myself, and it would be delightful. Okay, that's the first part of the proceedings, gentlemen, with commiserations. That's the way it goes. We've got the Bulldog up there standing, staring with a fixed look on his face, too. Johnny, Gary, and Royce, well done this year. You've got your $400 from your previous awards. Thank you very much for coming on. We've got a look at some action of Steve Gearin in action from yesterday. For those that may not have seen it, already I think it's become famous that the try that he scored, a grand final try. Have we got that tape coming up? Yes, we have. Here it comes. But we've got the man kicking goals, 6 from 6. We've got the man scoring the most incredible try in a grand final. And then we've got him in action throughout the year. And his ability to finish was one of the most amazing things. This was the sort of try that he's standing beside you there, Don. Mark Hughes. Meet Mr. Blair from the Wesco organisation. And you're the man that's going to get the beautiful Mazda 626.
Thanks very much, Don. I'd like to say a few words already. Steve's thanked Wesco massive for their sponsorship, and I think it's an unbelievable thing that they put forward these awards available to the players.
New Zealand, a superb season for George Paponis, and one that I hope personally he doesn't decide to hang up the boots, that he stays on with Canterbury.
Canterbury's many sponsors certainly had a field day out there yesterday, Case?
Yes, I think that's a question that, you know, on the frivolous side we could ask. Canterbury's sponsor, Electronic Rentals, was able to go out and put telephone numbers on the 4 goalposts around the ground, something I've never seen in a grand final of an international match before, advertising on the goalposts.
Oh, yes, but that would have been an endorsement. You'll find that the league would have got quite a substantial amount of money for that.
I realise that, but I'm saying the league is selling its sponsorship of everything, and now it's sold sponsorship of goalposts. I should imagine that the Rugby League's General Committee will find out when they meet that was something like $5,000 or $10,000
It'll be in the
worth of
annual report, I'm
advertising.
sure.
It'll be in the annual report. It'll be $5,000 or $10,000 from John Thorpe of Electronic Rentals, because that's what it'd be worth. Those...
I wonder what City Ford, whether they were allowed to bid for the... I mean, they did buy a lot of tickets to make the game televised.
Peter Warren of Liverpool with his cars out there.
Nick Politis.
And Nick Politis with City Ford. I wonder if they had the chance to put their telephone numbers on.
Training behind closed doors. I think Canterbury probably thought, well, it's ours now. They're not going to get our jumpers. I think it's probably East could have made the gesture. Whether they did or not, we don't know, do we?
Well, it's usually the winning team that makes a gesture, but isn't it?
Well, I think it'd have to be. And let me say, just before we have a commercial break, I think it's about time we grew up about the countdown to the grand final. This closing of doors for the Thursday night training it's got short pants. It is boys' stuff. Collingwood in Melbourne, with their countdown to the grand final, had 16,000 people watching their last training. It was a build-up. The crescendo, the enthusiasm continued to build up. What do?
The result didn't make any difference to them either.
No,
they were beaten by 100
they were
points.
beaten, but still, I think Richmond had an open last training which their supporters went along. The point I'm trying to make, Jeff, is that we're the only sport in the world where the build-up to the big event on the Saturday is chopped off on a Tuesday night. That's the last you see of us. Goodbye, goodbye. We don't want the press. We don't want our supporters. We don't want anybody. Close shop.
Now, the heavyweight title fight, and no one allowed to see them train.
That's right. You know, look, really, I know that there's a lot of pressure.
Second rower, Graham Hughes. I think that the surge to the top of the table came with Graham Hughes coming back into the side after injury, and the performance that the performance yesterday plus others right throughout this semi-final series, to me, makes him the form player of the year. And incidentally, if anyone doubts me, just ask yourself, if an Australian side was being picked at the present time, who would be the first second rower picked? And I think that he would be the only one at the present time worthy of going into an Australian side. So, Graham Hughes, my player of the year.
Jeff Prenter is the editor of Rugby League Week, and Jeff will now make his nomination for the player of the year.
Well, one of the first players I think that would be in the Australian team if it was chosen now, Frank, would be Greg Brentnell, the Canterbury utility back. He's my nomination as player of the year. This fellow returned from last season after suffering 2 broken arms. He came into the Canterbury team as a centre 3/4. When Stan Cutler was injured, broke his leg, he filled in at fullback. He was a match winner there yesterday on the tour of New Zealand by the Australian side. He played fullback, centre and wing, proved himself an outstanding defensive and attacking player, Greg Brentnell.
In nomination for the player of the year, we now take the nomination of Ray Chesterton.
Well, I may get a hat-trick for Canterbury. I'm going for their mercurial 5'8", Gary Hughes, the magician of Sydney Rugby League. I use the word mercurial in jest. He's put up with criticism all year that he's too slow, but he's been the architect of the now Premier's work all year. I think he's just an outstanding footballer. It's a year that's produced very few players with outstanding ball skills, and Hughes just reigns supreme. For mine, Gary Hughes, player of the year.
Peter Peters is the expert on Rugby League Week, and it's now his turn to make the nomination for the player of the year.
Steve Mortimer's my nomination for the player of the year, and I think that Steve Mortimer is, at this moment, the best rugby league player in this competition. I think that 8 weeks ago, when he came into the Canterbury side after a very short suspension, 4 weeks, he then struggled to get back into the Canterbury side. Once he got back in, he took over his spot from Mel Creevy, and the Bulldogs started barking. That's just one of his superb tries scored this season. He's been the little general in all the attacking moves that Canterbury's got, and we saw in the grand final yesterday just how he can change his game when he has to. He played the sweeping, cover defending role, as we saw him do in last year's grand final against St George. He did it again yesterday. 3 breaks by Eastern Suburbs, 3 cover defending tackles by Steve Mortimer, which were an absolute gem. He's my player of the year, and I think...
Talk about in 10 years' time, and remember, in all those years to come. And that makes him, to me, with his cool goal kicking throughout the match yesterday, the player of the year. Steve Gearin of Canterbury Bankstown, my selection as the player of the year. Gentlemen, we're in a dead heat situation because in nomination...
Can't you hear Ted Glossop and Peter Moore at home? They're 5 Canterbury players. That can't be right. It's Channel 9, 5 Canterbury players.
But I think we're quite justified because the play is all year to the crescendo of the grand final. And any nomination or election of awards for Coach of the Year, Player of the Year, or anything else before the grand final is played is premature.
Of course, there's a few of those awards made
Well,
recently.
I
Don't
didn't
look too
take
good
the
at
grand
present.
final in consideration when I made my nomination, strangely enough, and I don't know about the others, but we all come up with Canterbury Bankstown players.
All right, so we have in nomination Graham Hughes, Greg Brentnell, Gary Hughes, Steve Mortimer and Steve Gearin. Gentlemen, as we're in this situation, we'll now have to have second preference votes. I'll go to Frank Hyde first.
Well, my second preference is Steve Mortimer. I gave him the award yesterday after what Peter has already described as a remarkable game of football. His cover defence was absolutely superb. He varied stuff from around the scrums and the rucks to the benefit of the rest of the players, and Steve Mortimer is my number 2 choice as the player of the year.
Steve Mortimer, and I think Frank and Peter have probably said it all.
I'll break the bulldog chain. Rocky Laurie from South Sydney, very skillful ball player again, who is playing so well that he's parted with the best part of 50,000 to get him. Rocky Laurie.
Peter Peters.
I think Steve Gearin, his incredible point scoring during the year and also his performance yesterday, which I've got to take into account. It was a match-winning performance and part of the reason why they ran around the oval with a Giltman shield.
And my vote, and it's not the casting vote because you both, Jeff and Frank, have gone for Steve Mortimer. My vote goes for Steve Mortimer on a second preference. So on second preference, there's 3 votes to Steve Mortimer. And Steve Mortimer is our Tooths Pan Am Player of the Year. And to you, Steve, you missed out narrowly a couple of years ago on one of our Player of the Year awards. And now it's with great pleasure, if you're watching the program, I'll congratulate you. You and... Are you engaged?
He is, he's fiancé.
Yes. You could have it as a honeymoon with the compliments of Pan Am. Pan Am will fly you and your good wife-to-be, fiancé, to Honolulu, and you'll have a grand holiday there. And Sue, I hope you attend our program next week to collect your prize. Steve Mortimer, the Player of the Year. Now, the man who's coached Steve Mortimer, aside from Ted Glossop, who's had a great deal to do with him, especially in the last 12 months, is Keith Holman, one of the greatest halfbacks this country has ever produced. So here is Keith Holman, a report on Keith Holman and his coaching of Steve Mortimer.
Keith, you obviously have a great influence on him, otherwise he wouldn't take the time out to give you a call. But where do you advise him on? Do you see any weaknesses in his game?
No, not really. When I first took over, he had quite a few. He's covered a fence, he was standing back too far, but now he stands up, and as they break the line, he's there to chop them off before they get momentum. But another thing that made me do it is Teddy Glossop, because he's a mate of mine, and I respect Teddy, and I would not tell Steve to do anything that was against the wishes of Teddy Glossop, of Glossop, you know. And it was just one of those things, the little things that I thought might help him, which it has helped him, I think. And if I see something in the game, and he may not back up as much as he should, I might say something to him that way, but I remember when I played, I had a chap like that, Jack Drews and Eric Bennett from Dubbo used to look after me, and Podgy McGuinness, and they did the same thing, and it taught me to cover my mistakes and correct them, and at the same time you don't get a big head.
Keith, to be a great player, I guess consistency comes into it, to turn in good performances week after week. Steve fires coming into the semi-finals, grand final period. He seems to love that crowd. Yet he's very quiet sort of through the season. He's patching.
Well, it's hard to say. This year I wouldn't say he had a good year, because he unfortunately got sent off, and they send him off for anything these days, you know what referees are like at the moment, unfortunately. And I feel that he's coming at the right time. You get setbacks when you get dropped, probably, or you got to miss out in a few games, you lose a few injuries, it takes you a while to settle down. But no, I think he's always had it, just that they've had a few injuries with Canterbury, don't forget, and Robertson and quite a few of those players, and once you get a combination, a good combination, and they're all coming back now with Canterbury, that's why I think that he's starting to stand out better.
So the best of Steve Mortimer is yet to come?
I think Steve's got the best yet to come. Like, you know, it's like everything. You always learn. And one thing I like about him, he's prepared to listen, and, you know, they say the old fellas are no damn good, I suppose, but we lasted pretty well, considering the old fellas. But I like Steve because he's a nice kid, he's a nice citizen, a good citizen for the game, and I think they're the blokes you've got to admire.
And he's not far wrong. Keith Holman, one of the greatest halfbacks this country's ever produced, saying a few words about the man he's helped along the road, Stevie Mortimer. After this break, we'll be back.
Football. Locked at 10-all at full time, an extra 20 minutes had to be played. And at that stage, Arthur seemed to become very unhappy. Whether it was over being called off or not being called off earlier, we don't know. But every picture tells a story as he sits down beside reserve grade coach Mick Alchin. Full time, and Canterbury won. Beetson leaves the SCG for the final time. Bob Abbott, promotions man for the league, asked Arthur over for a special presentation. He declined. The big fellow was just as reluctant to be hoisted up by his teammates. He got a standing ovation, but nothing could ease the pain of a bad day on the paddock.
The end of Arthur Beats and the end of an era in Sydney football for certain. Rocky Laurie helped the morale of their team any, but Rocky Laurie had been signed for the 1981 season with Eastern Suburbs. Ken Sutcliffe makes this report.
When you first came to Sydney, you were playing for East for a couple of grand a year. You went to South Sydney, you played with them for about 6 grand, signing on fee. Now you're going to Eastern Suburbs and the fee is enormous. What's happened in those 3 short years?
Yes, it's pretty hard to say, Ken. I think, you know, I wasn't playing that bad the last 2 seasons, and this year I think I won a couple of awards, and paper awards, I suppose, really, and I started getting into a few papers and had some good games on TV, I think, and, you know, you just get a kick along.
You're going to be up against some very, very good players vying for their position. What sort of tension do you think that will create at Eastern Suburbs?
Well, I don't think they'll be real worried at the moment. They're in first grade, and I've got to get there, so they won't be too worried at the moment. But I'll be putting a lot of pressure on. I don't want to play reserve grade, so I'll be putting a lot of pressure on.
What's your ambition now? Is it to stay in Sydney football for as long as you possibly can, or what?
Oh well, I'll sort of set myself 2 years, and then I think I'll probably get out of Sydney. I'd like to go home to the bush, but you can't really say in 2 years' time if I, you know, have to maybe get away with the Kangaroos, and you don't know after that.
What's the lifestyle you're looking for? You want to buy a farm or something up there, do you?
Yeah, so I'd like to buy a farm, not do too much work, and take it easy for the rest of the life.
Any regrets about leaving South Sydney?
Well, yes and no. They've been good to me, but I had to secure my future, and that's the way it turned out. I've had 3 good years there, and I hope they've enjoyed having me.
They got their pound of flesh, and you did well.
Yes, I think so.
Congratulations.
Thanks a lot, Ken.
Rocky Laurie, from a rabbit to a rooster.
Now, effort from the point of view of representation, it's obviously been hindered somewhat with this draw, hasn't it?
Well, it has. I pulled out of the state cricket squad last year, mainly to try and get a berth in rep spots this year. Unfortunately, things haven't worked out, and now it looks like next year I'll be making myself available again for the state cricket squad. So.
You're not giving up, though, are you?
Oh, no, well, it turns a full circle. I don't know what the representative season is next year. I think the Frenchmen come out here, but there's a Kangaroo tour on in 1982, so I think I might get back into the cricket and see what can happen next year there. I'd love to play with the boys again in the Shield if that does come through. And possibly in 1982, hope to still be about and playing well enough to get on the Kangaroo tour.
Today, I think he's gone around the twist.
Particularly when Jeff Robinson was taking the ball up. The 0-0 scoreline at half-time is indicative of the match at that stage. Just after half-time, Canterbury were on the attack. Mark Hughes made this long run. Looming up in support was the young replacement halfback Tony Davies. Shows some nice footwork and a good pass. Unfortunately for Canterbury, the movement broke down here with Steve Folkes in possession on the quarter line. 10 minutes into the second half, Jeff Robinson was replaced. He'd played very strongly up to that stage, and from the scrum that was set, Steve Folkes put the little chip kick through, Gearin regained and slid over about 5 metres to touchdown for Canterbury's first try. And then what I can only describe as a typical Canterbury try, a long pass from Folkes out to Anderson. There it is. Watch him pass Corowa. Larry doesn't make much impression either. Just got to him, but he got the pass away to Cutler, and then suddenly Anderson's back on his feet again and away for a great Canterbury try. There's no doubt about it. They can really put these sort of tries together. Neil Pringle was rewarded for being Balmain's best player when he scored a try in the dying minutes of the game. It was an iffy try. It didn't come from much. In fact, the pass was picked up on the bounce by Hemsley, on to Pillen, and then out to Pringle, who a half dummy and beat a poor tackle from Folkes to score. The full-time score, Canterbury 8, Balmain 5, as we go to the dressing room.
Well, Jeff, that was a pretty torrid welcome back to football.
Yeah, it was. It was a hard game, especially for me, my first game back. But I found it hard the first 10 minutes. But after that, I got me win, and I felt pretty good after that.
I thought the entire first half was very torrid. You seemed to come in for a bit of special attention.
Oh, yeah, I had to get in it straight from the start. You know, I've got to start off somewhere. I didn't think now's the time if I'm going to do anything.
You were replaced early in the second half. Any problem there?
No, there was no problem. Pep was going to originally replace me at half-time. I wanted to have another 10 minutes to get a little bit more fitness, and we've just been on the safe side.
You seem to have some exceptional speed off the mark. I noticed a few times you were standing flat-footed by necessity, and you were able to still beat a few blokes.
Yeah, I've done some sprint training under Dave Dickman. Used to train West in the pre-season, and Dave Cooper and Dave Irvine have been a big help down here too.
How old are you, huh?
19.
And what's it like sitting in the wings waiting for Steve Mortimer to be injured?
Oh, well, a couple of weeks he'll still be first grader, so it doesn't really worry me. I'm just happy to play with Zergo.
We didn't win, so I can't be too happy with it. You know, it's gratifying from us.
Any shadow of doubt, they've got, I think, one of the great essentials of any team now, and that's depth. And while you talked about young Haddock being diminutive, have a look at, if you can possibly see it, number 7, Tony Davies. He's 10.5 stone, came out from the under-23s, has played a couple of reserve grade games. Looks as if he came straight from the schoolyard. And he is a tremendous young prospect. He settled in last night as if he'd been there all his life. The thing that impressed me about him was the fact that he didn't try and do too much, and whatever he did intelligently, and he did it well. He's a good little player, a lot of courage, and obviously has a top future. That was Gearan scoring a magnificent try. Canterbury scored 2 of their specials, and
you see the Anderson try coming up now.
This Anderson try is just something I'll just shut up and let you enjoy it.
Well, there he goes up the sideline, back in past to Cutler. He's on the ground, gets up, backs up, gets the pass again. So he's been knocked over in the middle of all that, and still now is not a double movement. His momentum was not stopped. His momentum carried him over. I nearly misconstrued that. I didn't mean to say that it was a double movement.
Well, what about Bing Pringle?
Oh, he was undoubtedly, Pringle was undoubtedly Balmain's best player on the night. He's got so much enthusiasm. He's got enthusiasm for his defensive work, and he's got enthusiasm for attack, and he does both in top-class fashion. You'll see him score, yeah. Good on you. Thank you very much, Neil. Always on cue.
Is Balmain a threat, Alan?
Balmain will be very good. They had quite a few players out last night, and Canterbury too. And I think one of the things that came out of the Canterbury match that Stan Cutler's put a lot of pressure on the selectors again with a very, very good performance last night.
All right, now let's just go through a few things. Obviously, those clubs that aren't involved in the pre-season run to the final, which are now... Greg, I always use you, as I've no doubt you're aware, as an object lesson to any youngster about catching bombs. The other fullbacks around Sydney now are emulating you with your total dedication. What is the prime requisite of a fullback taking a high bomb when he knows they're thundering down on him?
Well, I think the main thing is you just got to keep your eyes on the ball. It's as simple as that. You know, naturally with my Aussie rules background, I'm used to getting off the ground to take balls, but as you say, the prerequisite is you keep your eyes on the ball at all times.
Does it cross your mind, do you have to push into the background that you could get, now that leap for instance, you know, right through a maul there, that's beautiful stuff as far as I'm concerned. Do you have to keep on your mind that you're not going to allow the thought of these people coming at you to make you to distract you?
No, it's just automatic for me. I see the ball in the air and I keep my eyes on it at all times. You can see from that last one that I was in a gap when I got the ball, but I've got my eyes on the ball, so you know you're not looking for gaps.
Yeah, well, Greg, it's not always in a gap. Sometimes you get a hell of a serve too, don't you?
You do occasionally, but you know, at the moment I'm not worried about that. You know, you've got to keep your eyes on the ball and try and keep your knee up and protect yourself a little bit.
Well, you're not just a catcher of the football. You're still running very well too and linking nicely, and you were instrumental in. Actually, you were involved in the 3 tries last week, weren't you?
Yes, it was.
You gave a pass to Coveney, you gave a pass to somebody who gave it to Hughes, and the other try I just can't remember.
Oh, well, I was involved with them, but, you know, it was the blokes that scored the tries that did the work.
Yeah. Now, just a quick report on the horrendous issue as far as injuries are concerned. George Paponis?
Well, George seems to have cruciate ligament trouble, which is, you know, a big problem for him. You know, we won't know definitely for the next couple of days to see
that could be the end of his career, perhaps?
Oh, I don't think so. You know, it's a long way to go in the season as yet. I think, you know, maybe might be 10 weeks.
Casillas?
Well, Peter's got medial ligament trouble, and he's had trouble with both knees previously. As again, we'll have to wait until tomorrow to see, but he doesn't look good at this stage either.
And Gearin, dislocated shoulder.
Yeah, I think Stevens popped his shoulder. You know, that'll only be 2 or 3 weeks, I think.
It's bad enough. All right, let's have a look at the try that we judged to be the best one from this match. This was the Graham Hughes try, scored by Graham Hughes, man most responsible Graham Hughes. Here we go. Oh, he was involved off the original part of the play and then the diagonal run to score.
Nice dive too there, Rex.
It was a good dive, yeah. He's not thinking of going in the 400-metre swimming event at the next Olympics, I think.
We're going to give him a 3.6 degree of difficulty for that.
Look, he's on the show a little later on top. Might be the better one. We get that out of the way.
Gillette.
Battle against neck and knee injuries. With more on Peponis and the league, here's Ray Warren.
Thanks, John. I guess all other league news was overshadowed rather gloomily by the retirement of Dr. George Peponis, the former Australian and Canterbury captain. He gave a lot to rugby league, and I believe his involvement at such a high level indirectly built a bridge between rugby league and people who, had it not been for Peponis, might not otherwise have become interested in the game. Today, though, for the doctor, it's all over.
Taken a lot of thought in making this decision. It's something that I haven't done on the spur of the moment. I've thought about it for 2 or 3 weeks now, and I've sort of played it and replayed it in my mind half a dozen times a day, and you know, I'll finally retire.
What'll be your fondest memories looking back?
There's several. I think winning the Ashes in England in '78 was a high moment. Captaining Australia is obviously a tremendous thrill, and especially winning the 1980 Grand Final. You know, something that you strive for all your life, and that was a big moment.
What would be, do you think, George Peponis's biggest contribution to the game?
One, I've shown that, you know, you don't have to be uneducated to play football. Secondly, a lot of migrants, you know, and we are an ethnic community. There's a big population, and that introduced rugby league to that community.
In the Premiership battle, it seems another of the top teams has rolled up their tent for this season, with their unbelievable loss to Illawarra St George.
You know, I've been hampered by this knee injury now for about 10 or 12 weeks, and it hasn't responded to treatment, and I can't see any immediate cure for it, so I've decided to retire.
Must be disappointing for you to give the game away in this way.
Yeah, very disappointing. You know, I would have liked to have done it in a different manner, but you know, you can't always have what you want.
You captained Canterbury to a grand final win. You also captained Australia to a series win over England. How do you rate those two achievements?
They'll both be fond memories for me. I've got a lot of fond memories from the game, and I'm very grateful for what I've got out of the game.
And what a shame to see him go out that way. By the way, our big league match this Sunday will be the...
A doctor who led City, New South Wales and Australia to victory every time he captained one of the representative sides. Perhaps the highlight of the leadership he inherited from Bob Fulton was the 3-test whitewash of Great Britain in 1979. A series that saw Australia beat the Poms in every match and run in 13 tries to 2 for the series. Peponis has long been Canterbury's favourite son. The first grand final victory in 38 years was won under his leadership in 1980.
I would have liked to have finished off playing my career as a first-grade footballer. You know, the last season of the game, say at Belmore Sports Ground, where I've got many fond memories. But you can't always have it the way you want to have it.
He suffered a bit of blow at training tonight. Top prop Royce Ayliffe is out with an injured chest for the next 2 weeks and has been replaced by John Hart.
The battle against injury. Recurrent neck and knee problems have forced the hooker's retirement at the age of 28. Peponis was undefeated as skipper of Sydney, New South Wales and Australia, and led Canterbury to premiership honours in 1980. Phil Anderson is in second place after the 14th stage of the Tour de France.
One league rep from the 70s guaranteed to get the same response from any red-blooded Parramatta fan was Greg Hollywood Hartley.
Referee adamant and close to it.
And by the look of things, he got players so worked up he must think himself lucky to have survived.
Look at him, nose to nose. And he's walked in another 10. You can't beat the referee, Pringle. No way.
one para fan, this disallowed try was just one too many.
She's laying down the law. You cannot pull that try, she said. Greg Hartley's not impressed. Some of the players have got her by the arm, and Gerard has got her. He's taking her to the sideline.
And it wasn't just Mr. Hartley who copped it.
Well, that sort of action is not going to do him any good at all.
Ratch had a Queen to say to the crowd. Now, was that a sin, Vinny, for Queen to say to the touch judge? I think you might hear more about that.
And for the 100,000 hysterical fans. And half of them aren't going to agree with him no matter what he does.
Spend time with your kids that isn't just filling in time. Well, we know a game you can all enjoy.
Showing the game, feel the roar of the crowd. This is men against men, doing it proud. Show him the courage, show him the skill, what it means to be part of a team. Someday he will.
This weekend, take them to the greatest game of all.